Wow, there it is. Red light. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming to the August meeting of the BAR and the Planning Board. We'll start off the night. We still have the public hearing still open. So why don't we start there?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Brad Schwartz from Zarin and Steinmetz on behalf of the applicant, Plateau Associates. I am joined this evening by Nick and Peter Saladas from Plateau, Ed Vogel, the project architect, and Stephen Birthday from Petrocelli Engineering. Both Michael Zarin and Paul Birthday are away and could not make it this evening. So that's who I'm here with tonight. Jim, do you have the mouse for the...
Do you want it?
PowerPoint?
Right here.
Ooh, there's the mouse.
Thank you. So we prepared a presentation. Some of you may be thinking you've seen this before, but I promise I've kept it shorter and tried to focus it and tailor it to the purpose of tonight's hearing, which is, Mr. Chairman, the continuation of the draft FSEIS site plan and conditional use permit public hearing. We resubmitted a draft FSEIS to the board on August 17th, a couple weeks ago, in response to the board's comments at your work session on August 9th, and as well as in response to the comments provided by your board special counsel. We appreciate Mr. Stout and Mr. Rabel getting us those comments. We believe we have responded in entirety in this document, and we request tonight that the board close the public hearings that are currently open, deem the FSEIS complete, and authorize the preparation of a finding statement and a resolution of site plan approval. We believe we have reasonably answered every question and addressed every comment that has been asked of us over the past 6 months, and respectfully, it is time to move the application to its next step. Because it's a continuation of a public hearing, and this we have been through several times in the past, this is a quick summary of the project. It has some of the highlights: 137 rentals, 14 affordable. It's a mix of 1 bedroom and 2 bedrooms. It's a 6-story building over a garage. We had clarified that in response to one of the comments that came up at the work session. LEED Gold certifiable. That was another issue that was resolved, I believe, at the last work session. We are providing the appropriate number of parking spaces and off-site improvements to the North Water Street and what's referred to as the North Water Street extension. And here's a snapshot of the applicable site plan. The procedural status tonight is our 4th public hearing on the draft FSEIS. It's the 3rd public hearing on the site plan. Both the FSEIS and the site plans have been reviewed extensively by Keller Sessions. We don't believe there are any open comments at this time. The EAC issued a consistency determination in conformance with the LWRP on August 6th, and we have also started the respective review processes before the BOT and the ZBA. The BOT has jurisdiction over the special permit. The ZBA has jurisdiction over an interpretation that we have asked for, as well as 2 area variances. Those agencies, while they've started their processes, they cannot advance their respective reviews until SECRA is completed. And again, the next step in that process would be deeming this FSEIS complete. This binder, this document, on August 17th was our 6th resubmission of the draft FSEIS since April. Again, we believe we've addressed all of the outstanding comments by the relevant stakeholders. Just to highlight a couple or a few of the updates that were made in July and August of this past summer. LEED Gold certifiable has been clarified and confirmed in the document. We have included all the language committing the applicant to recording a conservation easement against 1.2 acres on the east side of the site. This is here highlighted in the green, together with a commitment to work together with the village to have a connector trail from within the conservation easement to Krabucky Preserve. We have provided this drawing that was in response to the board's request for a visual analysis from views within the conservation easement looking west towards the river. The document now contains the applicant's offer to donate the office building. We have met with the fire department, Army Corps of Engineers, and SHPO, and the outcome of those meetings and the summary of those meetings are also contained within the FSEIS. We've provided the 2 road grading alternative renderings. The floodplain analysis, a question came up in the last meeting about the floodplain analysis. We have provided all the relevant calculations. Keller Sessions has reviewed those, and we meet the requirements of Chapter 141. Again, that's all described in the narrative in the FSCIS. And we have also, being sensitive and responsive to the planning board's concern throughout the process, we have integrated in several places in the document where a statement is in the applicant's opinion. That way it's very clear what's in the applicant's opinion and what is of the planning board. To focus specifically on the changes and the updates that were made in this most recent version that was submitted, again, just a week ago, we believe we have made all the text changes that were requested by the planning board and special counsel. I'm not going to mention or read every one. It's up on the slides. But we have clarified again the 6 stories above the garage. We have defined the green roof to include that it's defined as a layer of vegetation with a with soil per the DEC manual design specifications. We have set aside 3 parking spaces within the outdoor parking area for use by the public to access the open air pavilion. A question was raised at the last meeting about the sidewalk and noting that it does not extend all the way to Crow Bucky Preserve. So that has been now clarified in the document. The sidewalk, we have taken it as far as we can within our property. If the village wishes to acquire easement rights over Diamond Dairy or Clearcast in the future, then the sidewalk can be connected. That would be consistent with the village's trail plan. And we have made that very clear in the document. And we've distinguished that sidewalk on the west side from the trail connectivity between the easement on the east side of the property to Crow Bucky Preserve. So that has been clarified and distinguished in this latest draft. Per the board's request, we've made it clear that the board prefers the rock cut alternative across from the castle property. You remember there were two grading alternatives, one that preserved the rock face, one that was all grading. This is again just a short and abbreviated version of the rendering that shows the rock face where the arrow is located. And there were a couple of other updates with respect to the road, including that Keller Sessions has reviewed the road transition grading with respect to the adjoining properties. And finally, again, there was language added with respect to lead. There was a request that we specifically include the lead language that's set forth in the code. That's now in the document together with the applicant's commitment that the lead consultant would certify to the board both before and after construction that the LEED Gold certifiable standard is achieved. We have summarized our discussions with the school district, including, Mr. Chairman, the one sentence that you would ask for with respect to the applicant's commitment to the district to continue working together with the district to voluntarily come up with a public benefit if that could be worked out. We've clarified that river views would be preserved. We have described that from 10 North Water Street, yes, looking north, there would be a view to the top floor of the building, but all views from that residence looking west to the river and looking south and east would be preserved in their entirety. In Chapter 1, again, we have added additional language at times about statements that are in the applicant's opinion or the applicant believes. All of the studies on traffic and stormwater and so forth, it's very clear now at the beginning and end of those sections that it's the applicant's analysis, and again, it's the applicant's opinion where applicable. And in Chapter 2, we have eliminated the language as requested regarding the pill factor in the main building, and also again reflects all of the comments provided by the board's special counsel. So again, tonight we think we have, again, over the last 6 months, have addressed every comment, answered every question. We asked the board to close the public hearings, deem the document complete. The legal standards, your board is governed by the rule of reason. We think we've satisfied that reasonableness standard. We presented all the information, all the relevant information, we presented it, analyzed it. The seeker handbook that's prepared by DEC is crystal clear, does not need to be a perfect document. And we think there are no substantive issues that are open at the moment. Again, we think we've answered every question. We would ask your board to authorize the preparation of seeker findings for consideration at the September meeting, together with positive referrals to the Board of Trustees and the Zoning Board, as well as to authorize the preparation of a site plan resolution so that way it is ready for your board's consideration after the BOT and ZBA issue their respective approvals.
Any comments, questions from the board?
I have a number of questions on some of the final chapter, I think final chapter 1, 2. The introduction seems to have remedied most of what you said, but there's still some things in both chapter 1 and 2 from the 17th that I find maybe should be clarified. What is the applicant's opinion and what is the board's? This is just semantics, for instance, on page 3, I believe we have here. According to the applicant met with the school district
I'm sorry,
superintendent.
yeah, I'm sorry, just page
This is in chapter 1.
1-3?
Yeah. According to the applicant met with the school district superintendent. Well, did you meet or not? So you did meet with the superintendent. So I think the
Yeah, I just want to
I think
get,
that's
I don't think it's on page
1-14.
1-3.
I think that's
1-14, page 14, yes. So it's just a matter of what, according to the applicant, should be. You did meet with the school board, so it is more the opinion matter that you come later when the applicant expressed its view, and that is correct. But I don't think you should put, according to the applicant, at the very top of that sentence, because it looked like you did meet, right?
We did meet, and
Okay,
I'm
so-
happy to strike that introductory,
So
that
that's-
introductory language.
Right. Okay, I have maybe a few others. I think there's many places where I would say at the applicant's view, and we are now on 8, what is that, 816? No, it's page 16.
Of chapter 1?
Still chapter 1, where you say the overall, the current project would likely result in marginal increases in demand for village services.
Hang on, I'm trying to catch up the,
Yeah, that's fine.
okay.
Trash removal, is that something that will be done privately, or is that something that will be part of the village responsibility?
Private, I think it's private.
That'll be private,
Yeah.
okay.
So, I'm sorry, Ms. Gann, is there a change in that?
No, it was more of a clarification, so, but again, water, there is gonna be a demand on water, and is that a marginal increase or not? I think that should be in your opinion, because we have not really assessed that, have we?
Well,
Yeah, that was included as part of.
It was included,
Yes,
Okay,
and that was
okay.
part of the analysis.
okay. I have one more.
So,
and I'm
just to be clear, is your request that in that sentence, overall, in the applicant's opinion, the current project will likely result in, I'm happy to do it, I just want to be crystal clear.
Well, I know,
Inside the request.
if it's already been verified that this is, that you technically have verified it from an engineering point of view, then I don't think we need to make
Fine.
any changes to that.
Let's move on.
Some of this is because I was not really prepared for the last meeting, and I was just coming back from a travel, so some of this might have already been taken care of. Then on 17, I'm not clear here where it says from the existing residence located at 10 North Water Street, the new building will be located to the north. It says something here about that it will not be intrusive. I think that probably should be also said in your opinion, because that is in the subjective. It is subjective whether a structure is obtrusive or is not, is changing a view. We know that we can't grant views to residents, but I still think it should be, it shouldn't be affirmative that we say it's in your opinion, it's not. I think that's sort of that is one of the neighbors, right? So I would like to somehow have something about that the height, that they will have that no upland structures will have their views of the river blocked.
I don't think that's what you said.
It
I
says
think you
here.
recognized it.
Looking
Okay.
north,
Yeah, that's right.
there would be a view to the top of the building. Looking west to the river, it would be unimpeded, and south and east would again be totally preserved. And that's what it says on page 1-17, as well as other locations
I think that's right.
in the document. So I'm not, I believe, I agree with the chairman, I think it's a factual statement.
factual
I don't
statement.
think that's an opinion.
We've
Right.
actually stood in that property. Okay.
Okay, okay, let's see, I have a few more. Oh, and then there's all, we'll have all of that later. So I have a question, this is just really clarification, and we are now on page 20. In regards to the improved road alignment in this location is shifted approximately 8 to 30 feet to the east into the rock face. And we discussed that last time, that the abrupt cut of the 0 to 5 pitch was, was to be preferred. But I have a question here. Is this 8 feet to 30 feet in some locations, or is it 8 to 30 feet sort of in general?
It varies.
It varies.
Yes.
So do we have cross sections of those cuts yet that you anticipate?
Yes,
I believe those are on the
there was
drawings.
cross sections, there
They're
was
in here,
earthwork
okay.
analysis, there was all,
Those are on the site plan drawings.
yes.
Yeah, on the site.
There are road profiles and road sections showing the grading and showing all those profiles.
Right, okay. Then there was something about. Oh, yes, that was just a mention again, it's all about the access road here, we on page 21. And it says, on the castle property, vertical alignment improvements require approximately 80 cubic feet of structural fill. The regrading outside a 30-foot right-of-way is limited to the area south of the building. Now, which building is that?
That's the building that currently exists on the castle property.
There are several buildings on Castle, right?
On Conga, there's several, on Castle, there's one.
Castle, okay. Of the buildings, so that should just be, okay. That's fine. Also on buildings, 29 North Water Street, and we're on page 22. Currently west of the existing road will be demolished and potentially reconstructed. Is there any need to document this building? Is that the old stable building that has been changed over time? Or which building is this? At least photo documentation?
So this is the building on Conga that if the road gets
Yeah.
shifted to the west, there's a
Right.
building that would be in the
Right.
right of way.
Right.
So that building would come down, and then whether it gets reconstructed or whether it gets developed as part of the Conga property.
But
that's
I'm
a-
asking
So,
more,
side
yeah,
question.
yeah.
So, for one of you guys over there. So, what happens on that property will be subject to an additional site plan review, et cetera. For the purposes of this, we're recognizing it exists, but we're not vetting what happens to a building that may or may not be torn down.
Right. I think you said, and language was included here at the last meeting, that the things, you wanted it to be made clear in this document, that this document was not ending your review of what was going to happen on the property of others as a result of that in your site plan process. I think the idea being that either in your site plan process, there will be site plans for those properties brought in and amended, or you will determine as a condition of site plan approval that will have to happen. It's an issue that you said at the last meeting, you did not want closed in this document, but held open for you to further consider in your site plan process.
And all of that transition grading, while that was said at the last meeting, I know that's been shown on the site plans today, both with respect to the Conga property and the Castle property. I believe it's been reviewed extensively by Keller Sessions. I know your board had said it, you went and taken a look at it.
I'm just trying to get in my head that we're talking about whatever the acreage is that we're sitting here,
Mhm.
and we recognize there's got to be some access to that property. In fact, there are two alternatives at the moment. We think the one is pretty well solid, but there's potential to shift some property lines and take some buildings down that might alter that, but we haven't come to that conclusion yet, and there's still negotiations that occur. But what we're finding here now is that there's actually a way in.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about this several times along the way, about the amending of those site plans. I think we've said that ultimately we're going to be given the agreements that have been entered into with the parties whose properties will be affected, and then we'll work off of those, I guess, to discuss what's ever going to happen with their site plans and how that's going to be memorialized in an approval for those properties, and that's what's going to happen.
Right, and further on that, on page 22 at the end, this is the agreements to relocate portions of the roads to the west. And it's mentioned, Conga is mentioned, but what about, there's no mention of the section owned by the village that would be needed, not just for the sidewalk, but there's a section, there's a sliver that actually would have to be taken into the road. So should the village, as an owner of a property that's needed to negotiate with, should that be mentioned in the same sentence?
Which sentence?
It's the planning board will express its final decision with respect to these two roadway alternatives, including appropriate conditions and mitigation measures in its secret findings and site plan resolution. The planning board recognizes that the West Road alternative cannot be required unless the applicant and Conca mutually agree to enter into an agreement to relocate this portion of the road to the west.
Right,
That
so-
should include the village, I'm assuming.
Well, a few things for context, and I'll be corrected if I'm incorrect. In the what we'll call the village portion of the roadway remains the same in both alternatives.
Correct.
So that might be enough for me to say.
That is
Yeah.
enough, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. Plantings, listing of plantings, that's more for the environmental. I had one place where I was wondering, there was a mention, and I'm going back to the 100-year flood, and now we're on page 424, talking about the improvements, and the 100-year flood event is mentioned. Both the 100-year and the 500-year flood lines are mentioned here on the site plans. But there was a mention last meeting, at the work session, that the Santucci building would be protected with up to the 500-year event in terms of the raising and the area that it would be raised for. And that I just wanted to know whether this needs to be mentioned here in some way. Is that also showing in the elevation of the road and the barriers?
Again, on the site plans, I believe it shows that the Conga property, the Castle property, there will be no adverse drainage impacts to those properties as a result of the road plan. And remember, the road in that section is being raised 2 feet to comply with fire department requirements and to comply with the latest FEMA.
Right, but the 500, I was assured at last meeting that they would.
Your question at the last meeting, I think, was about the chapter in the code on the floodplain requirements, and that we had provided those calculations and the analysis.
Yes, I did see them, but I was wondering in the text whether there should be something alluding to that.
That's in here. I may not pull out the page site immediately, but one of Brian's comments earlier was to take this floodplain analysis drawing and summarize the calculations and the conclusions in the document. So it is in here.
The calculations are there, I
Yes.
noticed that, and they're mentioned there.
Yep.
Yeah,
Forgive me, I don't have that page.
right, no, I didn't have that page either, but I do recall that. And I just have stormwater management on page 25.
Chapter PD?
We're still.
What chapter?
Chapter 1.
Chapter 1.
Yeah. The applicant believes that potential impacts relating to stormwater management have not changed significantly since 2013 due to the project refinements. I mean, I'm glad you're saying applicant believes, but projections for water, for water level rising and permanent rise in the next 75 years is 6 feet. So I think maybe things have changed since 2013. There is some projections that are a little bit more dire than that, so anyway. Culverts, okay, we have all that, let me discuss this. I
sorry, are
think
you
I'm
asking
almost
if-
through on this.
You want them to expand on anything? Because
I
as far as
just-
stormwater goes, they're only required to meet the current
That's right,
codes, and they've
that's
certainly
right,
done that.
that is
so.
right, that is right. I just hope that the building will still stand in 75 years.
It'll just be the parking lot. It was, it'll be all event. Okay.
Okay,
Anything else? Jeff?
all right, I think I have probably, yeah, those were my comments, chapter 1.
Actually, I don't have any comments.
One more time?
I mean, we've had many meetings and work sessions, and the changes we discussed in detail
And you're a newbie here.
are reflected here, so.
I think the applicants addressed everything I brought up last meeting at the work session.
Good. All right.
So I just want to confirm that you are or will make the one change we
Yes.
talked about
Yes.
tonight, okay. I had given, after the last meeting, I said I would give the applicants a list of comments. I did that. There was one that we talked about today that will now get changed. It can be considered changed, as it were. Okay. All the others were made, and now this one's.
So I think the only comment that I have can be dealt with the site plan. But I think you raised it, which is the conservation easement and the trail. We need to come to some conclusion someplace as to how they're gonna be built and who's gonna build them. I just wanna make sure, should we close the public hearing on the SFEIS, we can cover that in the site plan.
Yes, the answer is yes. Is the applicant agreeable to
Well,
that?
we
Said
have
it.
on page 18 in chapter PD, Mr. Chairman, I'll give you a second to get there.
18?
Page PD 18.
Work my way down.
So it's in the middle of the paragraph. We have committed as a condition of site plan approval to enter into an enforceable agreement with the village to, again, it'll be to the satisfaction of your review and approval as well as Corporation Council, that will lay out all the terms and conditions regarding the design, the construction, the financial contribution for those connecting paths. It's too premature at this juncture to,
There's one word missing,
go ahead, what is it?
who pays?
So that's in here, including but not limited to the applicant's financial contribution and other participation in the construction of the connecting paths.
Is that open?
Yeah, that's my recollection of the language is that it's, what is being said is we will agree to that.
Correct.
Not that we are
We
agreeing,
haven't
we
agreed
will
to the
pay,
amount.
we're committing that in the future, we will discuss and agree. And I think the chair's question is, if
At
the-
the end of the day, when the trails get built, the applicant is gonna pay for those trails getting built. How's that for a straight question? Because that's why I asked the question, because I think the words are a little.
Right, and I think we had said that we would agree, that look, we would work out all those terms, and then we'd add the language consistent with the type of trails that already exist within the preserve, yeah.
I'm just checking on
Yep.
who's writing the check. That's all I care about. okay? I'm sure the village and the applicant can figure out how to build trails, right? Somebody's gotta pay to build them, right? And it's at least my expectation that that's where the public benefit comes in. You not only, show how they can get done, but they get done. So, that's, otherwise, it's just a piece of paper.
The answer to your question, Mr. Chairman, is yes.
So
Okay.
maybe we'll ask for, as a cleanup,
I'm
we'll,
sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna,
as a cleanup, we'll have that language clear.
Instead of saying
You don't have to do it
applicants-
standing here tonight, but we'll.
may I suggest that when you get to that, instead of saying the applicant's financial contribution, you could change that to something like the applicant's responsibility for the construction of.
I'll leave it to you, all right?
But the substance has been agreed to.
That's my only question.
If you decide to accept this for filing tonight, that will be deemed to be one.
Correct, correct.
Yeah.
So does anybody in the audience come to speak to this application? No. What do you know? Okay, great. So, folks, there's a request to close the public hearing on both the SCBIS and the site plan. We should take them one at a time to see what your pleasure is. I'll just tell you that I see no reason to keep the public hearing open for the SFEIS. I think they've demonstrated within reason that they've met all the questions that we in the public have asked. And would look forward to your comment on whether we go forward or not, unless there's something from our council or our planner. Nope. Okay. So, what's your pleasure on closing the public hearing for the purpose of filing the SFEIS? Okay. Walter moves. Jeff seconds.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's 5-2.
So when and if you're ready, you want to address a resolution directing the filing of the SFEIS. I think there should be a discussion with the applicant. That normally triggers some clocks that really, you would want the applicant's acquiescence to be extended under the regulations. If you accept the document for filing, the finding statement would have to be adopted within 30 days, and your site plan decision would have to be made in 30 days. I don't think that's, just on the site plan decision, it's not possible because you need the BOT.
But we haven't done the site plan.
Yeah, but the secret regulations, the adoption of of a resolution filing the FSEIS would technically require that then you do that. What's typically done here is the applicant agrees to extend those deadlines if you are going to file the SFEIS. It's that simple.
The answer is that, and that's a common request in any municipality, and of course, we would continue to grant those extensions, but, it goes without saying, I think, we want to see that process continue.
Within
to
reason.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, I agree. Within
reason.
Okay.
So with that agreement on the part of the applicant, when and if you're ready, there could be a motion to accept the SFEIS for filing. If that's done, the next step will be the preparation of secret findings in the secret process.
Walter already, and Jeff already signed up for that amended version.
I would do two separate resolutions, the one for closing the hearing and the one.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I was separate.
Jeff?
I will move to accept the SFEIS
For filing.
for filing.
Okay. Second, Walter, second.
Jim, does this include the author preparing the findings, or that can be a third motion?
Right, me?
Is it the third motion to authorize the preparation of the findings? Is that folded into motion two?
Let's get this done,
Okay.
and the board can talk about that, would be my advice.
Okay.
You need a vote.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5, 2 absent.
That's a big step. Congratulations.
All right, so let's work on 3.
So if you want to stick with the site plan, it would just be I don't think there needs to be a motion, but you can have one, to direct your staff to, and council to prepare for you a draft set of secret findings. can do that by motion if you want, or just tell us to do it. We'll do it by motion.
Why don't we do it by motion?
Okay.
So, Guy, you're smiling. Are you moving it?
All right, I'll propose that we,
All right.
I'll second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Carry, okay. Well, that takes care of that part.
These two first and second.
Okay, so, you said there's the second part, which was request to close public hearing on site. I'm sort of less inclined to do that this week.
That's exactly the way I was going to characterize
Well, sorry to take the words out of your mouth.
it. Less inclined. And to be specific, in all fairness, in the context of some advancement here, I think there's been, for example, there were some photographs shared by one of the members of the EAC. I'm not sure what the takeaway for us, for example, was from the collection of photographs. I suspect some of it may have related to the existing brook outflow, and I don't really know. But I think that could be categorized and sifted through one or two more dialogue sessions in the site, regarding the site plan.
In the meantime, certainly, there's plenty that can go on here. There's findings will be
Yeah, of
brought forth.
course.
And they've got to be at the zoning board of appeals and the board of trustees to be seeking those approvals and so on.
So one, I'd like to see those photographs. That's the first I've heard of those photographs. So if there is some of the EAC provided to your board that was in addition to the consistency determination, if we could get a copy of that.
I'll be happy to. They were provided by a member 2 days ago. So it's
Terrific,
not-
terrific. So look, I appreciate the movement forward tonight. I guess I would submit that if that's the only open site plan comment at the moment, I'm not sure the hearing needs to stay open for us to address comments by the planning board. Right, the purpose of the public hearing is primarily to allow the public to comment. This is the third session of the site plan hearing tonight. So I think your board could close the site plan hearing, and any additional site plan comments such as those by your board, of course, we would address them going forward, and can also be incorporated into a site plan resolution. I'm just not sure that the hearing needs to stay open to accomplish that.
That is a well-crafted response.
I think there are actually two, one commission, one board that are still yet to be heard from finally. And this was the request of the Historical Review Commission to assess the office building with potentially moving it to someplace, and that involves the village board to make some determination on that. And that's sort of my only open switch on this, is that, because I think that does have an impact on the site.
Well, respectfully, Mr. Chairman, I don't agree. I don't think that affects the
That's
site plan.
okay.
The site plan as proposed shows that building coming down. The offer that's in the EIS is the offer to donate for $1. The HPC, separate and apart from this process, can look into it. If they're interested, the offer's on the table and they can accept that. And there's again, what condition language has been inserted into this document is that the applicant agrees to that offer of donation. And as long as the HPC's inquiry and ultimate decision doesn't hold up the process, and as well as does not hold up the construction of the project, the HPC process, that's separate and apart from your board's site plan review.
I appreciate your comment.
and I appreciate too, however, I think that there are still some woolly language because we have two options sitting there. And the language is still that that the building is slated for demolition. And this is in the final chapter 2. It also says that it is an eyesore, and those are things that could be in the applicant's opinion. But wouldn't it be better to have a cleaner language that, after deliberation by the village board and for the Historic Preservation Commission, that if that offer is taken and if they actually find a way to move it, that would be, incorporated in this document.
But that doesn't affect the site plan, right? As far as the site plan is concerned,
Excuse me, just check. So it seems like this is before the village board now, at some level.
They've had some discussions informally, so I'll
So
kick it up.
we need to get this done, right? Because that, in my mind, is the only open source that I have.
Right.
And then, I think you're right, public comment regarded by the chief would be, I think, a disservice to our village board, since they're weighing in on this, to not give them the opportunity to present their opinion before we close.
but just to be clear, our site plan proposal, whether we take the building down or whether the HPC decides to accept the donation, the site plan proposal is the building comes down and the proposed building gets built in the location.
And that's why the public hearing's still on. Again,
That's.
I got it. Okay. So where are we? We can,
Good. Terrific progress has been made.
okay.
Good.
I think we move forward.
A couple of other small requests.
Sure.
In conjunction with authorizing the findings, the next step after the findings would also be the referral back to the Board of Trustees on the special permit. So we have asked that in conjunction with the preparation of the findings, there's also preparation of the referral back to the Board of Trustees that it's ready to go as soon as your board adopts the finding statement. In other words, the referral to the BOT should be simultaneous with the preparation of the finding statement.
We should.
That's how it was.
We should do that. That will help.
That's how it was done in Hudson
Very
Steps.
That will
logical
actually
and
help
important
with my
step.
question. Okay, so yeah. I'm sorry, John?
I think it's a very logical, if not an important
Because that
step.
application has come in, it's been referred, so that's fine. You can then just.
Okay.
And the same would go for the ZBA, if your board does
So
take a position with
what's,
respect to a
what's
referral to
the
the zoning board.
motion To refer these both back to the village?
Yeah, I think you want to hold on to it. I think if I'm not mistaken, what's being asked for is not just that you refer.
Not to refer now, right?
But wait, you've got to wait, but
Prepare.
also, I think you're being asked to take a position when you refer them back. Say to the board, we think you should do this. Am I correct, or you, which you don't have to do, you can just refer them back. But in any event, I think you need to wait till we get the findings.
I just want to make sure that you're authorized, that we don't get the findings, and have to wait another month to do the.
Yeah, you just-
It's all going to get wrapped up together with the findings.
Am I correct that your ask is that the direction to staff and consultants is while you're preparing the findings, prepare a resolution to refer the things back?
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
And then the last, and then there's one other issue that has been on the table for a couple of months now, but we really haven't pressed it, we've been dealing with those other issues, is the building width issue. You may remember the principal building width is 80 feet, and the code has 75, but we believe we meet the spirit of the code provision, that we are preserving views to and from the river. The dominant view from the river looking east would be of the hillside, looking west, the views are either over the building or in the trees, so we're asking the board for a determination that we do not need a ZBA variance for that additional 5 feet, that you, and your board has the authority to waive that under your code. So we're asking for a determination that the principal building width of 80 feet is acceptable to the planning board. Reducing the building by 5 feet would make no appreciable difference looking to or from the river.
I tend to concur with that suggestion, and I would add, and I look at both Walter and Joe, I think 5 or 6 years ago, when we were first sorting through the initial components of this, part of the dialogue regarding the building width, as it relates to that area of the zoning, current zoning text, was that the building uniquely sat back to the east side of the tracks. It had a unique relationship to the plateau because of the way it was tucked in and not stood out. And that the sensitivity to the width of whether it's 75 feet or whatever is really intended to protect or to accommodate views of buildings that are on the westerly side of the tracks or in a more exposed context. And this building really isn't any of those.
So.
That's a long way of saying, we
No,
kind of had this dialogue, I
And I
think.
think that's right. And my only sort of observation to that is that since we have the latitude to do this, we need to be bound by some number of feet, right? Because if 5 works, does 10 work? And when does it now require the board to review this? I don't think there's language in the ordinance that specifies that we have to go up to 10%.
Is it?
Could I ask, what is the language in the ordinance that we're to be guided by when we grant a deviation from?
Fearfully would ask that.
Is it, is it a recommendation, or do we actually overrule?
Is that the width of the building, you know, as it relates to looking east and west, is 75 feet wide?
Right, and if the impacts are, the board feels that it doesn't impact, there's no numbers to quantify, it's more of a
It might be
qualitative.
also just a
Case by
site by
case.
site.
270,
Some sites,
23.
and
Okay,
additional
you got
foot
the
might
code?
be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, F is in Frank too.
While Stuart's looking it up, let me just say that you can't make this determination tonight because the findings have to be adopted. But you could give the applicant a sense of the board that, so that they know they don't have to apply to the ZBA.
I don't have an issue with that.
Yeah,
In this particular case, I think John stated it very clearly, that given the topography, given where it's nested in, the slope, the changes in elevation are dramatic, that, and it's actually a minor adjustment. You know, 5 over 75 is a small number.
Yeah, and I think the other notion I'm trying to express is that we're not just suddenly, this isn't suddenly bubbling up at this juncture of the application, that it was a part of the vetting process early on, you know, as a major component to this, so, you know.
So,
If you'd like, the language is as follows, because it's 270-23F2, which is special provisions applicable to planned waterfront districts. And it's for building width and open area. The total cumulative width of building structures, solid fences and walls more than 36 inches in height shall not occupy more than 50% of the width of a parcel as measured along a line substantially parallel to the Hudson River. And the maximum building width for each structure or building shall not be more than 75 feet, measured along a line substantially parallel to the Hudson River. Of the remaining open area, one uninterrupted space shall be at least 30% of such parcel width unless the planning board approves more than one view corridor totaling 30%. Excluded are existing Village of Austin designated historical buildings or any parcel or structure that is deemed by the planning board as irrelevant to preserving view corridors either to or from the Hudson River.
so this is,
I'm not sure that
I don't think that lets us do this.
Say that again?
I don't think that,
Yeah.
I don't think that says we can vary.
I think,
Well, I think what it
the
says
only
that
thing it
there are
says is we can
views that-
recommend.
If there are views that are irrelevant to preserving view cars either to or from the Hudson River would be excluded from the 75-foot requirement. That's how I read that last sentence.
Well, then you're arguing that, in fact, what you're saying is that your provision does not even come with, that they don't even have to follow the 75 feet because it's completely excluded. That's different than saying they can just reduce the 75 feet.
And Stuart, I'm suggesting the latter, that
Okay.
it's reducing the 5 feet.
Okay. But
Well,
that's,
since we don't have to decide, I'd like to look at that.
oh, well.
No.
And in the, ultimately, with the advice of council is needed, this is really a building inspector determination of what the code means. So that will have to be, we'll have to work on that between meetings.
Great. Okay.
Appreciate, look, I know it's been a lot of months, so thank you for everyone's
No,
hard work and scheduling work sessions over the summer. Thank you.
tell Michael you did a great job.
Say that again?
Tell Michael you did a great job.
Can you say that a little louder? Good night.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
All right, so we are good to go to move on to VAR.
Mr. Chairman, 49 Spring Street will be adjourned. It's over before the zoning board.
Do they, if they want it. I mean, last time we had right. That's why, I mean, I can understand.
We asked them to speak into the mic, we can't hear. So
I agree.
we don't know what's being, we can hear them.
Gotta use
Right.
You can't hear you. You gotta, it's gotta be close to you.
Maybe 175 Broad.
Pardon?
That's also the planning board.
175 Pro?
123 Main.
123 Main?
Yeah.
Wait.
Wait, where's 175?
I don't think that's,
123 Main is CAR?
Yes.
CAR for addition
Yeah.
to the rear?
right.
Okay.
Well, what about,
175.
175.
where's 175?
That's the planning
123,
board.
maybe.
What?
It's also planning board.
Oh, so we're not, got it. No, now we're doing 123, right? 123.
Thank you.
Yeah, up there where the plus sign is.
Sorry.
Up there where the plus sign, you see where the plus sign is? There you go.
Okay. Good evening. So, Jimmy Hernandez, the architect of the project. This is in addition to the rear of Village Coffee at 123 Main Street. He added approximately 240 square feet at the rear of the property. We have gone to the historical review board, and we have a certificate of approval.
Yes, the resolution's been prepared, it's just awaiting the chairman's signature.
So the addition in the rear is going to have all glass, it's going to be a high ceiling. And we use an A60 white trim. We have iron railing going down on the steps to the rear of the property. There are two windows in the existing building that they're going to be partially black in order to accommodate the addition.
That's in 125, right?
Yes.
Purpose to increase the seating?
Yes. There will be seating basically at the rear, the front and at the rear of the coffee shop. So as you can see, I'm sorry this is kind of dark, but this is the steps down to Central. This is the existing, and this will be the proposed addition. The kitchen in the back, the existing kitchen will stay as it is. And then this will be all white trim, we have a metal roof, and we are blacking out some, partially the existing windows at 125, because
Those two windows, they're going into one of the new apartments that are going to be, that are being done, right?
no, we're not seeing open.
125 was raised, the floor, there's.
No, I'm
they're not-
sorry, that's 121, I'm sorry. This-
I understand, but
Yeah.
those two windows that are going to be blacked out.
They're not into apartments, they're commercial. You're talking about 120, the building we are putting, like in the windows partially, that's 121, I'm sorry, I misspoke. No, 125 is this side.
It's one, okay. All right,
Yeah.
I thought it was 125, it's to the
Yeah.
east, right? So that's 125. You have 123, the one to the east, the building to the east is 125. And those two windows, we have already approved an apartment layout for the addition to 125.
So they're full.
The
I don't
third
think
floor.
so.
Yeah, but the second floor is having apartments too.
Right.
So the question is,
We're not blacking out windows in the, it's this area, this is still open.
They're showing.
I understand, but the second, you're on the second floor, the two windows that you're blocking, what is there?
I understood from the owner that was a commercial area. I can,
We have approved earlier.
You're on the ground floor?
No,
We have
we're on
approved
the ground
earlier.
floor, but
This
we're
is-
talking the ground floor.
This is a, I'm sorry, I'm not in this, but this is a rear extension of the ground floor. The apartments are on the second and third floor of the neighboring
Oh,
building.
so this
Yeah.
is, so,
It
okay,
just
so
looks
the-
like a second floor because this view is from Central.
all right, so, okay, so this is where Dokash is then.
Right, that's what it is, a
Okay, so
commercial.
those are
that's
the
a
windows that are,
commercial-
that's
It's a
It's
basically.
a commercial space, that's what.
Okay,
So this-
got it.
So this is the back of the bar, then there are
Are these the
no
windows
windows.
you were talking about?
Yes, these two.
I think Kai's talking about these two.
I'm talking about the two that are
The
gonna be.
windows,
There.
Yes, those
Yeah.
two.
they're not being eliminated, they're being reduced.
What's that, I can't
They're
hear.
being reduced, they're not being eliminated.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what you,
That's what I
Yeah.
was asking, they're being reduced,
Yeah.
so,
so
but
the
they're,
gable of the, I'm sorry, go ahead. Kai.
so I'm just curious about, so those windows will be looking into this dining area.
No, no, those windows will have view from, if you see this section here,
Yeah?
sorry, that's section.
They will
These
be
are the
above
windows.
the roof line?
Yes, they will be above the roof line.
Okay,
Okay, now I understand your question. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
no, that's what I was trying to.
Because I thought you were talking about this window, no,
Hey,
this.
JB, is this wall the south wall, west wall, whatever direction it is, of Doka?
Yes.
Yes,
So, as far as I can recall, the entire west wall of Doka is a bar back. I don't really recognize any.
So that's in the front, this is the rear, this will be
Yeah,
where
but
it's
it goes all the way to the back, and there's two restrooms back there. And that's the end of the building, right?
no, no, it
okay.
continues, I used to have my
Yeah.
office there, so I know it very well. It continues down the hallway, all the way in the back, there's an office
So
in
it kicks out,
between.
so it kicks out.
Behind the kitchen and the bathroom on Doka's, there's an office, and then you go even further back where Melita has her store
Right.
Yes.
currently. Eventually, that's gonna be turned into apartments, and whatever that little office area is gonna be, I don't know.
Yeah.
Whether it's gonna be an extension of Doka's or not. The question is really whether those two windows here, where do they fall in relationship to the plan of 125? I would like to see that, because we're talking, and I can't see it.
Okay.
So I'd like to see that relationship before we say, okay. So basically, you have the floor plan. Did you do the plans for the
No.
addition? Okay. But somebody should present that, because I think we need to see that.
Maybe I'm not following Kai.
No, I get it.
Right.
Well, actually,
These,
the question is,
are these,
even though this
these
is
are the
owned
two
by the same
windows?
guy.
Yeah.
That you're.
Right.
Yep, what are they, where are they going now?
Corporation number two's windows.
In the building section, I'm not sure I understand how the cricket happened.
Well, I'd like to see a floor plan of 125. It's the same owner, that he has already, because I now have my office in 127, all the buildings are connected in one way or another. So 125, 127 are connected. Now, 123 and 125 could get connected through this here by, either expanding windows to a door or whatnot. However, I'd like to see the relationship between the two buildings. I would like to know what these
I
windows
understand.
are.
But as far as VAR, I mean, this is what we're trying to, I mean, you don't have an issue with what the building, what the addition looks like with, I mean, we went through
Well, you
an
know what, you
extensive
can't
review.
look at things like this.
No, I'm not,
Right?
I'm
I mean, I
not-
have
I'm not
no
calling-
issue with it. I think it's a
So,
great
I'm not
idea.
saying that.
And I think,
There's a couple things, 'cause technically, the VAR should be looking at this piece of construction. The question comes, we got two windows that right now are looking out into open space. And in 6 months, they're gonna be looking out into this dining area. And why would,
they're not looking at the dining room, there's
They
crayon.
essentially become clear stories
Yeah.
above the roof intersection into the wall.
well,
And there's a
not-
cricket indicated
Yeah, building section.
But the whole point is if
You're right.
you would not grant this as an
Right.
okay
So
if it
that's why
was two
becomes a
different
clear-
owners.
The double home becomes a clear store.
Right,
right.
So,
And I'm not
and I'm saying
arguing
you would
Knock out the
have to
window.
see what happens to
Right,
the
I'm
building
not arguing
where
that.
these windows belong.
Right, I'm not arguing the point with you,
Well,
what I'm
that's
trying
what
to
he's
get is
proposing.
to, if everything else is okay, that's the only item we have left. So we went through an extensive review with a historical review board, and hopefully everything got taken care of.
I'm not questioning what they had to say about it.
No, but
But-
do you have a comment?
My comment to it itself is that looks fine,
Okay,
but I still think from a point of view of, is it fine to have windows sitting above like this? Is it, I mean, I don't see,
So the BAR question that Kai is asking actually doesn't relate to this building. It relates to the impact you're having on the second building, right?
right.
Because
Right.
now you see something that's perhaps a little odd. So, you know, we don't know how you're treating it, right? And I guess the question is if you now decided that those windows would go away, which they could go away, since this is commercial space and not residential space, then that drives another BAR question. So, we need to resolve what's it actually, I think, it did strike my curiosity now too. So, but you know what, I don't know, let's find out how the rest of it works.
My-
I mean,
What I'm trying to get to is,
So-
if this
so I-
is the only item
Right.
left, then when we proceed with the rest of the project,
Right.
I would like to be able to proceed with the architectural component, then come back here and give you a layout of, talk
Well,
to the owner.
but I think I don't know. We gotta ask somebody.
I can't approve this
So,
without knowing.
well, I don't know.
Can you-
We don't have any.
Can you
choice.
describe,
I mean, so this is BAR, so it actually affects the building that we're looking at now. And the goal of the BAR is not too similar, not too dissimilar.
correct,
It has nothing to do with what happens to the building next door,
Right.
right? I mean, should it have something to do with the building next door, it's a different question, right? But the way I think, you tell me, the ordinance is written, that's sort of our bandwidth. And quite honestly, we only see the three sides of the building, anyway, because the other one's tucked up against the other building. So from that point of view, I don't have an issue with what this looks like, since our historical review commission is giving you a certificate of appropriateness. And that, they didn't raise this issue either, apparently.
No. And that's I'm not saying
but I
that,
think
that's
the
an issue
question
that
is
we
still-
would like to address, and would like to address that with the building department
And
as
I
well.
think-
So-
So I think that's right, because I think we created a window that at least the bottom half is relatively useless.
Well, there's no
Well,
question.
yeah, that's-
I don't think they're suggesting that the window is, it becomes a clear story.
yeah, I would like to ask you to describe, so on the rear elevation of what's proposed, there's a darkened in area.
This here?
So you're gonna be basically replacing the window with a smaller window?
Yes.
And so it's gonna be filled in consistently with the rest of the building below?
Yes. Because
And then
we have, the idea is to, the inside of the coffee area is gonna have the same finish, the exposed brick on that side.
So it's gonna be, so it's gonna be exposed brick on that
Yes,
wall?
yes.
Basically, you're just tying
The
it
same-
in and.
Yes,
And exposed, when you say exposed brick, you mean the exterior of the existing building?
will be the,
Becomes
yes,
the interior.
Right.
Yeah.
So you'll have to make it consistent all the way up
Yes,
from floor to
yes.
ceiling? And then, so for those windows that exist now, they're gonna be replaced, so someone on the inside of the other building is gonna have a smaller, higher window?
right. The commercial area here will have a smaller clerestory.
Like a transom.
Yeah, like a transom.
So-
We don't want it to eliminate the window totally, we wanted to keep some of the light in that
I
area.
I mean, I think that explains to my
Okay.
needs of what's going on here.
Good, okay, good. John?
I think there's so many other mitigating components to this that the windows, the modifications to those windows are insignificant. The question I
You
do
mean that in a
have,
good way?
pardon?
You mean that in a good way?
I meant that in a non-impactful way. But that the addition itself, in and of itself, is a good thing, which compensates for the fact that those windows recede and they're insignificant in my view. The new stair, it's best illustrated in the photograph. That's a metal stair.
Yeah,
So I can't read the numbers here on this reduction or here. What's the total vertical distance you're traversing with that steel?
Can you
with the
zoom in on
steel, it's
that?
about 8 feet, 9 feet.
Okay. And so and again,
Can
I
you zoom
understand
in?
this is tread
Yeah.
Who's
riser,
got the,
Sorry.
who's got the?
building code stuff, but it would affect the aesthetics of this. Is the intent, is that a 7 and 11
Yes.
proportion or a 6 and 12?
No, it's a 7-Eleven,
Okay.
this is commercial.
And I'm assuming that that stair is really only for emergency access?
Yes.
Because everybody would come in through the coffee
Yes.
shop. Yeah.
What actually happens in that little apartment that's got a nice door and
It's a kitchen downstairs. Yeah, in the main floor, that's the bathroom to the coffee shop.
all right, cool. All right. Any questions? All right, so, Hi, are you, good to go?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I'm good to go. I
Is there a
just,
motion to approve the
I just don't
plan?
wanna, shoot ourselves in the foot.
All in favor?
That's all.
Aye.
Aye.
Excellent.
Second.
Okay, Austin Children's Center, 32.
It's also PA, it's also planning.
They were, well, we've moved right along. Avalon.
Yep.
No, I was helping you with that.
He's got plenty tonight, but not yet.
Okay, Avalon Community. The applicant is seeking to amend the site plan condition approval to trim and eliminate the
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. My name is Annie Klein, and I'm an associate at Del Bello, Donnell, and Weingarten, Wise, and Whitaker in White Plains. I'm here tonight on behalf of Avalon Austining, and joining me is Lindsay Romano from Avalon. We are respectfully requesting that the 2012 Planning Board approval be amended to eliminate a condition that requires Avalon to provide a shuttle bus service from the property to the train station. And this is because the service has been underutilized since it was offered, and ridership continues to decrease. So Avalon Austining is at 217 North Highland Avenue. It contains 168 apartments in 4 buildings, including 17 affordable units. It is currently 96% occupied. The project required several levels of approvals from the Planning Board, Village Board, and the Zoning Board of Appeals. And tonight, we are specifically talking about the August 20th, 2012 Planning Board approval that granted site plan, conditional use permit, and subdivision approval. And there was a condition in that approval that states that the applicant will begin shuttle bus service upon the occupancy of 25% of the residential units. Once occupancy of the residential units reaches 75%, the board will determine whether or not a shuttle bus is required. The applicant will appear before the planning board and report on the use of the shuttle bus service. So we are here tonight reporting that unfortunately ridership has been very low.
How low is low?
Well, it has been available since August of 2014, and in those 4 years, it has only been used 43 days by 19 apartments, which is just 11.3% of the total units. And no more than 9 apartments have ever used the shuttle in any given year, and service has substantially declined in 2018. So we agree that it was a well-intended condition, but we just feel that it can't be justified by the demand at this point.
How is it advertised?
So it is advertised on the website. It is part of the sales pitch, and it is also when prospective tenants are moving in, Avalon meets with them, and if they indicate that they are commuting on the train, then Avalon provides them information on the service.
And so is the service still $100 a month?
Yes.
Sorry.
So, the other question for Walter, so did we reduce the parking requirement because you had a shuttle?
I'm not aware of that.
How many people
I
have
can
cars?
What?
How many people have cars?
A lot of people have cars. That's what we found, is that most people are driving themselves and not taking advantage of the shuttle. So,
What does it cost to park? What does a monthly permit at the train station cost? Does anyone know?
Couple $100.
400?
A couple $100 a month. Because most of the people go to Kroger. But I think there's a waiting or not. It didn't help. It's sort of interesting because the Mystic Point, Eagle Bay, and the Brook Club all have violent shows. This one's a
Do we need more information?
Well, we always get to this spot. Last time, I actually thought that the $100 a month was an interesting barrier to people. But I think, you can't make people use it. Part of it also was because we felt like it would eliminate a lot of, some of the traffic, because we had a long discussion about the traffic signal in there to get in and out. And this was sort of one of those mitigating reasons why we didn't insist on a traffic signal.
Can you tell us how it works? I mean, do people have to call and say, is there a regular schedule? I mean, is it convenient for people to use it? That's one of the things that I'd like to know a little bit more.
So Lindsay has more information. It's my understanding it runs every day regardless of whether there are passengers on it.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
It runs around the community, so it's driving regardless of whether or not anyone's using it.
And do you have
So
to
it's-
make reservations, or it's just, you can show up on a daily basis and?
Is it your practice, notwithstanding the usage, to canvass the residents and ask what they think about getting rid of the service?
We have not, but
Not to my knowledge.
Does Avalon ever do that? I'm sure you've had this before.
Yeah, I mean, we survey residents when we have questions that we ask them. We can survey them if that's a request.
So what's the shuttle cost you a month?
It's annually $60,000 to $70,000 a year.
For nobody in, the guy just sits there,
Yeah, he just drives
or
around.
twice a day.
I feel like, this is, maybe I'm conjuring this up. I feel like at one point during the dialogue regarding the shuttle service and its mitigating elements for this particular project, and I won't characterize it as resistance on behalf of the applicant, but it wasn't immediately. And I feel like one of the notions was, knowing that there are other shuttles operating in other multifamily projects, that a more unified, perhaps, linkage and usage or common shuttles could have been pursued among developments. Maybe that exists in between one or two of the other multifamily developments that you just suggested. That seems like a more logical next step, perhaps, is to reach out to one of the other properties, developments, and see if there's not some synergy there. The notion hasn't gone away, right? Maybe the usage has diminished for a lot of reasons. It's
Well,
tough for us
it's
to
actually
know.
not even diminished, it's never clicked.
Well, right, never caught on, who knows? But the notion's still there, right? Reducing the attempting to thoughtfully reduce traffic entering Highland, traffic going to the train stations, parking spaces consumed by, all of those things. So, I feel like there's a couple of pages to be turned here, but
Yeah, and I'm also curious about what is the main difference? I mean, what is there a huge difference between the population of people who are at Avalon and, let's say, Eagle Bay? I mean, is there a?
I don't think there's a fee at the other place.
There is no fee at the other
I don't
place,
think so.
right? I mean, that could be a huge,
Could you do a little homework?
Sure.
I think you got it, the assignment already, but so we know of at least 3. Maybe there are more up there, a lot, I don't know about Hudson Watch, which is in the towns. But, could you, and I think you all talk to one another, so you ought to be able to figure out what, and they actually, one actually has a service on site, the others, I think, contract with the service provider to do it. But what do they charge? How often does it run? And what's their utilization? And also, how many dwelling units do they have? I think that's homework assignment number 1. Homework assignment number 2 is that there are actually tax credits, and there are both to the individual and to the providers of this kind of service, which you would qualify for, to essentially remove cars, right? Encouraging people to use public or ride-sharing transportation. And it's not insignificant money. I think it's $260 a month. I'm not sure what Avalon can get, but I'm sure they must know more about this because they have a lot of properties in high-dense areas. This might be valuable to them. So if you could look at that, that would help us come to consideration. And then, because I do feel like this was an accommodation to help reduce the impact on the community, you should give some thought to what would replace it. And then also, as long as I'm at it, when we agreed to do this land swap for density, when the project was built, there was supposed to be a connecting trail and parking from Route 9 to the Quabucky Nature Preserve that I don't see signage or parking. We have to do a better job of advertising.
Okay. Yeah.
Super. So with that, we'll adjourn this for a month. And if you get the data.
Chair, can I just ask, it's fine, one other thing, 'cause the planner and I have talked about this. Can you, in your checking, determine how many folks who are in the affordable units use the shuttle service? Because those folks may well be dependent upon it, and the loss of that could be a significant, even if they're able to pay for it now, it's a lot different than if they have to get a car. So maybe there's a way to sort of figure out within the number how many actually fit within that. That could help.
Okay.
Do they pay the same?
Wait, hang on.
Do they pay the same rate, the affordable?
Yeah, I believe so. Yes, yes, the same for everyone.
I forget if your letter had this, I know you had the number of rides, but did you provide the number of residents who are signed up?
We have the apartments that are signed up.
Okay, so that, That's already there.
Yeah, I mean, there's
The
a
other-
list of apartments, Exhibit A, all the apartment numbers that have signed up are on
Then
there.
my other question, is this an outside service you contract for, or is this something you do in-house?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to Victoria Pool.
Good evening. David Venditti from Victoria Home. Would you like me to wait for that? No. I think the board would be happy that I do not have a presentation. We went through that extensively at our last meeting, and then we're directed to prepare and submit to the board for its consideration a negative declaration, which Anthony Russo of Environmental Compliance Services did on August 10th, along with a number of other documents, his draft secret comparison as he did last December, for your review and hopefully passage. We are on, at least tentatively now, the zoning board for next month, hopefully to have those variances either, however they're going to address that, whether it's renewed, ratified, reissued, they're the same variances, but all the same or lesser in magnitude than what was previously granted by the zoning board. And we're here to answer any questions you may have about the draft negative declaration that's been submitted. Of course, we need that as a prerequisite to go over to the zoning board so that we can then come back to this board for site plan approval and conditional use approval.
Good.
Tony, would you like to talk in case do you have any questions for?
Any questions from the public? I think you've done a great job of explaining. So we're here tonight just to
Adopt a negative declaration. I'll prepare a resolution to that effect, get a vote from the board. Because it's basically, and I want to thank council and the consultant, but it's essentially the same as what we've had before. Just a few tweaks. They've given us some updated information, but it's basically what this board adopted back in
January.
Yeah.
Okay.
We tried not to reinvent the wheel.
Great. Let's see that again. Is there a motion to?
Make a motion to adopt.
A second?
Second.
Thank you. And with that, then we'll have a referral to the zoning board for the September meeting.
Right.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your cooperation as always.
All right. 49 Spring is.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did have a question. We had prepared for you, in case you wanted it, somewhat of a Board of Architectural Review presentation of some materials. Would you like to wait until we come back next time?
Yeah.
Okay.
The other one.
Good idea. Thank you.
All right. 173, North Highland Inn.
Jane, that's adjourned, right?
Yes.
It's adjourned.
Yeah,
They give you, are they adjourning that?
sorry,
173 is adjourned?
yes.
185, is it 185? 185 North Highland Inn. Oh, okay.
Maple Lodge?
Okay.
Yes.
Exactly. All right.
This wasn't a good idea.
Keep it on the desk.
It wasn't exactly right. Open it up and watch
The site plan's fine.
There?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Mark Bellato, Prime Engineering. don't know if the board remembers, to remind everyone, we submitted in May for an amended site plan approval that this board had given in July, just a year ago, July 2017. The amendment was to add some drainage and remove a trash enclosure at the northwest corner of the property. We had a hearing in June, and we took in the board's comments and revised the plan to what we hope the board will like, and we resubmitted, and we're here tonight before you to hopefully get approval. Just briefly, some of the changes that occurred on the resubmission were some landscaping we added to the north property line, as well as the Environmental Advisory Council asked for some landscaping on the westerly property line. We added that. We added some seating specifications. We performed the percolation test witnessed by Keller Sessions for the drainage, and we are proposing a post and rail fence along the north side in lieu of the chain link fence.
What's going on with the sidewalk? Is that going to be replaced, Bruce?
I'm sorry, the sidewalk along the road?
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
again?
the sidewalk along.
It's proposed all new.
Okay, good.
That was something the board had asked for back last year. We are actually, hopefully, a week or so away from getting that permit to do that work.
So I just have a feeling, because we have varying treatment of the sidewalk along the line. Some of it is the sidewalk is right along the curb, some of it is either a brick or a grass buffer. This we're showing here as right along the sidewalk, and the buffer is that little loop in the middle of it. What's the preference of the village and the state going forward? I know what my preference is.
Right, I'd actually defer, because being new, I wouldn't really know what would be the preference at this point in time.
I don't know if there is an actual preference, but it's all determined by the DOT as a site-by-site basis. You know, they determine vehicle movements, visibility, existing conditions, widths, so it's not a cookie cutter. From here on, we're gonna have this detail.
Because the gas station right next door in South is undergoing some other metamorphosis as well. So there's an opportunity to make better sense of what's going on Route 9. Now's the time. Because very soon, 173 will be back, and I think they do have sort of a brick or something along the way. But we need to decide what our streetscape looks like.
One story.
Right. Other than that, I don't really have any issues.
The only question I have is the post and rail has evolved from the chain link, and clearly you want a fence there. So here's my observation, and this is, post and rail can mean a lot of things, obviously.
Okay, we have a detail on sheet 4, as well as, rather than just putting a fence there, we also landscaped it. So there's a, I don't know, about 5-foot width there, I think it is.
Right.
With some landscaping.
And I see the detail, and I understand, I get it, right? And I think it's much better than a chain link fence. But here's what I would say about post and rail, depending on the species, today is much different than post and rail was 10 years ago, and very much different than it was 20 years ago. The primary observation is they don't last, right? They deteriorate in 2 to 3 years. So would you consider a composite post and rail? You leave the detail just the way it is, and consider a composite material that's not going to deteriorate in 3 to 4 years?
Isn't that, this is what it says, PVC.
Oh, it does?
Yes,
Yeah.
it
Oh.
does.
PVC.
Yeah, is that the shiny PVC?
That's what we were sort of envisioning, yes, but
If you're gonna have the planting buffer, why do you need the fence and all?
The owner wants a fence.
Yeah,
That's all I can
clearly
say.
the owner wants
No, but you know, I mean, if it's a curb.
And the owner's not my client who's the applicant,
You're gonna
so.
drive over it, you know, I mean, what do you think, you're gonna just barrel over it with your SUV?
I'm sorry, you're thinking it's gonna,
I'm thinking that this is gonna be a bigger wreck with a fence than with no fence, because that's a very narrow, as you probably know, driveway. And I've been around here for just a few years, and my humble opinion would be, if you got a curb there, and you got some plantings, you're gonna be way better off in the long run than, because you're gonna be fixing it all the time. And all of our code enforcement people have breakfast there. So you should expect that there'll be a lot of fence repair. Just a suggestion. I think John's idea is great, but if you can convince your client, landlord, that it would be a home run for everybody.
Just for the record, essentially, that kind of was the dialogue at the last meeting. Did you have that discussion with the owner regarding and so,
this,
just for the record,
yes.
can you refresh us what that dialogue was?
Look, why don't we approve this plan with some reasonable composite, not that plastic stuff is clearly in break.
I think that would be agreeable. I mean, it
Okay,
was-
and then I'm thinking, it's a nightmare.
so you- just to be clear, your preference is a curb?
No, well, you're gonna have to put
There is
something there.
vegetation.
You're gonna have to do something.
There is raised plant, I think there's some confusion.
You're gonna have to do something to keep that stuff from running over. I just,
That's sort of what I was thinking there on the top. We have the plantings in it like that.
I mean, that's sort of a rural look. But anyway, there's nothing there now, correct?
Correct.
Right.
There's a construction fence.
There's,
an
yeah,
construction
so
fence.
we suggested last time maybe also either that you actually plant in the ground or that you have big concrete planters with vegetation.
We're planting in the ground. We
You're
have
planting in the ground.
Yeah, we have plantings and a fence.
Yeah, but
Okay.
I think, I mean,
okay, I think you got it, right?
All right.
You know, I would even go for low. It's better than
The plantings are low.
no, I'm talking about even the fence.
The fence is a 4-foot fence,
I
correct?
don't know.
I would do 36.
I
That's
don't
if
know
you have the
what
five,
it is.
you have the,
So
5
it's
feet.
there, and-
It says
but
5 feet on
it looks
there?
like my property line. It's all right, you guys will figure it out.
5 feet,
Motion
yeah,
to
60
approve
inches
the
is
plan.
5 feet, so,
That's 60 inches to the footing. It's
oh wait,
Oh,
yeah.
about 36 inches high.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
I just don't want it to be the crappy wood or shiny vinyl.
Right, yeah.
I don't know how to sum it up more than that.
I'll go along with that.
So composite is your
Yes.
preference?
Yes.
Like
If
a
you-
Trex type composite is what you're thinking?
Yeah, well, there's a whole universe, yes, but that's essentially,
Is there a preference, like the fake wood ones or the white ones?
I would say,
The Avalon Division,
I think you got the message.
Gotcha.
they have some green,
We'd like to leave you some latitude.
Okay.
not much.
Well, they didn't change it. I can get the reason why it changed it. We didn't think of it then either, but we did a little bit. Okay, so we need to first, this is an unlisted application, so we have a negative finding. So we need a motion.
So moved.
Second. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Now that we've done that, is there a motion to approve the site plan as submitted?
So moved.
Okay. Second, Ryan, all in favor? Done.
Thank you.
Okay. 121 Main Street. applicant looking to waive
It's just a replacement parking waiver.
placement parking.
As I understand it, the original waiver was granted for a bar restaurant, and the actual use ended up, I'm sorry, a bar lounge, the actual use ended up just being a restaurant, so we were asked to reapply for the waiver, which we did.
Okay? Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? If not, is there a motion to approve the waiver?
Motion?
Second.
Second.
Jeff, all in favor? Carried.
Great. Thank you.
175 Croton Ave. Applicant is seeking for subdivision construction of a new two-family residence.
I don't know which picture you want to look at. Yeah, no, I can't wear that.
Good evening, everyone. My name is William Simeotherides. I'm the architect for this project, representing the owner. I'm just going to give you a brief description of what we're doing here. As the chairperson just said, we're proposing a two-family house on a vacant lot. So this is 175 Croton Avenue at the intersection of Pleasantville Road. Right now, the lot is a vacant lot, but it does have a driveway that provides access to the adjoining house that has parking in the back with a two-car garage. At one point, I think I was told that these two properties were owned by two brothers, and I guess one of them built and the other one left it empty. The new owner owns both properties. This is the existing house, and we're proposing, as I mentioned, a two-family house right here. We're going to relocate the existing driveway, which used to come right around here, to a new location that's going to provide access to the existing structure and the garage, as well as the new building, which houses a two-car garage in this corner, one-car garage here, and 3 additional parking spaces in the rear. We received a variance from the zoning for the placement of the new structure, which is, I believe, 34 feet from the property line. We wanted to do that just to keep it pretty much aligned with the adjacent house, and it just provides this negative, what architects call negative space over here. It's just an open grass area with, as I mentioned, the driveway that serves the two. If we want to go, how do I get to the next page?
So is this all on one lot or 2 lots?
I don't know if you could see on this drawing, but there's 2 lots. The property line is right along here. So we are going to require an easement. I'm not sure if there's an easement now, but I doubt it, but there's, like I mentioned, the driveway right now is in the vacant lot that serves the existing structure here. So whether there is an easement or not, we're going to provide a new easement along here. I believe that might be last month's drawing. The new drawing does show, is it, can I zoom in here?
Yeah, the plus sign.
Yeah, I didn't see it. Yeah, the easement's not shown here, but it's basically going to be this whole driveway to this corner here, straight back. So this whole area here is going to be the easement, because the people that are going to be parking here are going to have to back up and come out, so they're going to have to use this portion as an easement. The structure, how do we get to, sure you don't want to do this one?
Is there a reason why that has to be so much pavement?
Well, as I mentioned, I'm going to do it this way. Yeah, unless I can find the next page.
Unless this is where the...
Yes, there's...
It's the
That's why
access
I want to
to
get
the
to the
garage.
floor plans, Jamie. There it is there.
But it's not this, because this is only one page.
Yeah, let's go to the floor plans. 1B. So, the driveway's basically along here. This is the ground floor. First level is going to be the two-car garage as you approach. As I said, the driveway's coming along here. So the reason for that big driveway, as you mentioned, is to provide backup space for these 3 cars. So there's 2 cars here, 1 car garage, and then the outside parking's back here. The structure is going to share a common entrance with mechanical and laundry room here, and you're going to go up to similar, basically 1 apartment on each floor, 1 on the second floor, or I guess you could call it a second floor, ground floor, first floor, and second floor. It's, I think, 1,200 square feet or just under, 2 bedroom, 2 bath each unit. The living spaces will be facing Croton Avenue, and the bedrooms are in the rear.
Living spaces on the one house.
Excuse me?
Living space on the one house will face Croton Avenue.
Both layouts are the same, second and third floor.
So there'll be a total of 3 floors there.
Ground level,
Yeah.
second floor, and I guess the third floor.
But they're both facing Croton Avenue?
It's only one.
Yeah, both units face the same direction. The living spaces are facing the front, Croton Avenue, and in the rear there are 2 bedrooms.
They're stacked. So you have the garage level. one
It's identical layout basically for each unit. And the entrance, if I can get to the elevations. When do I minimize it?
Close it out.
Close it out.
Exit out. The exit.
I can't see that far. Okay, right here.
Up.
There we go. All right. So the entrance is in the long direction, which is this. The lower level, the ground floor, is going to be all brick faced with vinyl on the rest of the structure above. The main entrance is here. These are the 2-car garage. That's really going to service the first ground level and the first floor. And the other car garage is here. So that's the entrance, which is facing the existing structure opposite this elevation. This faces the adjoining lot east of the property, right before the pizzeria. And the elevation that's facing Croton Avenue is this. So this faces Croton Avenue, and this is the rear elevation. So because it faces Croton Avenue, we added a few more details with the metal awning canopy over the large windows. This is NC2 zone, so one of the reasons we provided the 2-car garage in the front of the property instead of the rear is in case in the future this owner or the next owner would want to convert it to a commercial space. It's large enough, and we can provide entrance to the front here. Just right.
With no parking.
There would be, we would have to provide more depending on what the use would be, but we do have some more spots.
I just have, there's nothing to do with the site plan, but why did you decide to put essentially 2 flats and not do a duplex?
Actually, I did a duplex design, and the owner preferred this. I sort of I mean, it worked other than, I think there was only possible to get 1-car garage for each unit, just because of the layout and the space in between. He preferred 1 on each. Well, actually, you mentioned that, and the zone, the code for this scenario is going to be different than what you suggested. It's going to have to be more of a commercial building when it comes to construction techniques.
You were thinking more in terms of a carriage house. Yeah.
He's thinking more of a townhouse with 2.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
similar to what they did on North State Road. Whoever built those down on that little
Yeah.
enclave of.
Just the notion
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
You got, it's a long haul to that third floor.
Yeah.
It is, the other way,
Take
I
lobbies
mean,
all the way down the basement.
it does take up a little more space, you're gonna have 2 stairs for each unit.
Do you have these views, these Google Earth
Yes, I have.
views captured? That can we go to?
I don't know if we can, we'll try.
I'm sorry, Walter.
Do you have one?
Close that.
This one?
You had one in
Close that.
particular. This one.
That's one. It's not in there?
I don't know,
I can pass the photos.
I have. I'm just. It's this one I'm looking for.
Right.
But I think for all of us to look at it is beneficial. Or you could recreate it by just going to.
You know what, there might be under the zoning.
Just go to, like, that's true.
You want to show it to John?
Well, I have it. I just thought if we could get it up here
Right,
as
for the
a
audience.
point of
You want me to find
discussion.
it up on the?
Can you?
Okay. Oh, but I need to type. Right. That's over here.
Oh, you mean you're gonna go to Google?
I have a keyboard. My pen control.
175.
We will provide roller skates to our new plan. For future use.
See, 175?
Croton.
That might not be an aerial view, but it gives you.
So that we could start here.
Okay.
So there's if you just rotate around there, Tracy, there's obviously a lot going on in this intersection. I mean, and the notion of the way our text, rightly or wrongly, sadly or happily, captures what the lens is for the ARB. You got it all going on here. So then it's the planning notion of inserting a house in that open space between the two existing residential structures. And we kind of have some lessons learned about that. If you were to continue around Wells Fargo and then look at the barber shop and then the dentist office on Pleasantville Road, we see how that evolved over time. It just became one merged sea of asphalt into another merged sea of asphalt into another merged sea of asphalt. And I'm concerned that's what's going to happen here. That's the way this is going to appear. And then it's what is the appropriate look of the house in this context? I don't have an answer for that other than, it's whatever happens here is going to be a real new statement, even though it's tucked back. And I understand it's a cornucopia of aesthetics going on in this intersection. And so, you put all of that in the hopper, and this is a challenge. And I'm not here with answers. I'm just saying, I think we have to be sensitive to the challenges that are presented by your application. And if there are any ideas or if any enhancements of planning notions and what may be more appropriate, or if the proposal is appropriate in the context of that intersection, I'm struggling. I don't have the answers other than.
Can you back up a little just to show the adjacent property too?
Which way do you want to go?
Up Croton Ave there.
Yeah.
Right.
Where in, you're moving the driveway to the
Right,
left?
so you're concerned about, the blacktop and pavement. We're actually not adding that much net gain of blacktop. If you remove what is there and just shift it over between the two buildings that we're gonna put there.
Well, I think Joe's observation that essentially you're creating an asphalt area between the existing mansard house and the proposed house, right? So that, the open space between those two structures is now gonna be asphalt. It has a driveway link, but that's, you're gonna see that. And again, I'm not saying that's epic in the context of this neighborhood, because it happens all over. There's a lot of asphalt in this neighborhood. And clearly when Austin Pizzeria in its original form of that 50 shopping center appeared in this neighborhood, it was out of context, right? We know today we probably wouldn't have done that because it's such a severe new element.
Pizza.
Yeah, well, right, and it's healed in over time, right? And it's become a lovable place. But, so I don't know what the answers are here, if there are any.
I feel that if it could be, even with the same massing, could feel that it's relating to the mansard building, which, is the only thing of age character that's left in this area, apart from maybe some turn of the 1918 strip mall section further down where the Chinese are. If it could be that it get that feel of, and I agree, that it would be better if it was a townhouse kind of breakup. But if it could have that sense that it's really relating to that building, rather than we're just having another boom, 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 boom. And again, you're gonna be very close to that driveway, right? I mean, you're gonna cut in, so you're gonna have retaining walls and whatnot.
The house will be lined up with the existing mansard roof, so that's gonna be part of the retaining wall. In the rear, there'll be a retaining wall.
Right.
In the front, where you see that driveway, that's gonna be gone, that's gonna be grass.
I
So
understand.
there will be a low retaining wall, maybe 2 feet tall or so.
Between the neighbor and.
Right.
Right. And how close are you? I can't see that because of the drawing. I can't see it on the
Well,
drawing.
we're keeping it 10 feet away from the property.
Okay.
And the
that
property
is-
line's pretty
that
much
is-
where the cobblestone.
And that is within the zone?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So, it's, I'm sort of in the same sort of conundrum about how do we have this area develop into, what is it gonna be in the future? And should we try to maintain something that keeps a sense of that this could have been, a historic enclave, it's something that of interest, or are we saying now we're going to more of a much more urban look? And I don't have a final remark on it, but I would like to see more of a rendering in a photographic sense of what the building as is proposed now would look.
Is that
Is it?
Well,
Okay,
so
all right, from the
Kaya,
side.
if I understand it, and Walter just suggested it, at least continued what you're,
But this is not what we see in the background. This is showing forest. This is not what we
right,
see.
I get it.
So,
Wait, so Kai, just so I understand, because are you, it's an interesting idea that since this building's gonna have since the new building's gonna have a planning relationship to the existing mansard structure, I think that's one idea. Do you make it an accessory to that, and they kind of look like they were estate elements?
right.
And I think that's an interesting idea, but the reality is, and I think we've all experienced this, recreating Second Empire, Mansard, Hudson Valley, it never happens, right? It's a poor interpretation and effort in the end, and it looks like. So I'm not so sure that's going to be
Right,
better
no,
than this.
I don't think I would want to do anything that, is
if
a
I could
small
just,
replica of something. that is, I'm not saying you should do it in this style of, but let's,
And I did think of that, so I don't know if I mentioned, this is going to be a modular structure, not that it matters for the design. But one of the reasons for the brick base and the brick entry facade was to relate to the stucco. And if you look at the rendering, there are corbels along the first floor. There's an overhang on, for the second.
Yeah, actually, I think those are good moves, and.
So
and
without getting into the mansard design, I threw in
Yeah,
a
no,
few elements.
I wouldn't think mansard design either, but it could be, because, accessory buildings, even for a structure with a mansard roof would not necessarily have a mansard roof. As a matter of fact, would rarely.
I just hate to use it as an accessory because it is a separate lot. but-
I think in the end, this is, as it is in any project, it's going to be, the selection of the brick is going to be a very handsome, rich brick. I think the color of the siding, as you suggested it here, probably works, but, that's going to be an important element. The volume of brick on the stair element is a little.
Is a little much?
It seems like a little much, but
Yeah.
that's.
I could relook at it. I mean, I was thinking more of stucco at one point too.
Yeah, there you go.
Maybe to just relate a little more to the mansard. but-
I don't know if this would work with like the turning radius for cars, but between the two
Yeah, well,
garages
that was an issue.
and where the entrance is there possible to do any kind of landscaping in that area where there's
Right,
the wall?
right, to mitigate the volume of asphalt.
Just because it'll break up that sea of asphalt.
Right, that's a good idea.
I think
Landscaping
any
along the sides?
movement- No, what I mean is like, is there a way
Oh, I
to put a
see,
little,
yeah.
cut a little,
Yeah,
No.
actually, no, it was on the back, where the back parking, there is a curve there for some planting. But-
That will have, every little bit of that, managing that asphalt, sea of asphalt is gonna help.
Right, and that's why I thought by moving the existing driveway, which is really right next door to the adjacent property's driveway, to the center, I mean, I'm not saying we're not adding blacktop, but it is, I think it was a net gain of 5.
and actually just what, I was gonna say on the other side of this driveway, on the existing house, you've got the pavement right up against that house as well. And I don't know if there can be any kind of, is there any room to do landscape?
Against
Yeah,
the existing house?
Yeah,
I know, like, well,
raised
suggesting
beds
two
or-
things that are.
Well, no, that's a
narrowing
good
this,
point,
but-
because there are meters there, so we
Yeah.
are gonna have to put some ballards or something to
So why can't
back
they
it up.
be in a
They could be
grass-
in
yeah.
a grassy area.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
better.
that would be better, yeah.
So,
Or a
so
garden.
do you think you've got enough feedback to do another turn of the crank here?
And also just on the engineering side, by moving that driveway, I mean, you see the utility pole, there's some
Oh.
other things. And the
And,
driveway really comes out parallel to the stop bar at the intersection.
and what
Well-
about the, what do you call it, the
Fire
fire hose?
They show the
hydrants.
hydrant to
That's not
remain, whether that's
So
completely constructible.
Route 130.
Back up to that
State
first statement before the stop bar statement?
Yeah, where they're shifting the driveway,
Because that's not, yeah.
you'll be pulling out of the driveway looking down the stop bar.
Oh, that.
Yeah,
Oh.
It's right where the stop, that line, it's just to the
Right.
left, the right of it.
Well,
that's,
what does
I don't think that's an
state
issue,
land
I mean,
on
where they're coming into it right now.
It's a state.
I didn't want to come next to
They
the
don't have-
crosswalk if that was an issue.
That's what I was very curious.
Okay.
yeah, you can't come to, yeah,
I think
that's the
we-
question.
I think we beat this one enough.
Yeah, I mean, I think you, given all you had to deal with and the fact that your client wasn't interested in a townhouse, it's now just refining as best as we can your base concept. I think it was you did the best you could in siding the house. And I think pushing it back and lining it up was the right move. Now it's a few refinements and.
The other thing I was gonna say, on the existing house, there's hedges across the front, and
Right.
you don't have those shown here.
On the new, they're only on the existing,
So they remain there, or?
well, those that you see to the right of the pole
They
are
have to
gonna
come
have
out.
to be removed.
Are you gonna establish on the other side, along the house?
I don't know if I want shrubs there, we haven't really,
Replant?
because I think I'd rather see just lawn, maybe some low plantings, but shrubs. So just to be clear here, does the board want to see the duplex type of scenario, or?
No matter to me. I mean, it doesn't really change much on the outside. But
Yeah, I think I'll just
it's
refine.
certainly not going to make a big difference to people who are going to try to move in. The third floor is going to be quite a
Climbing up,
challenge.
it's only 2 stories.
Yeah, I think, a couple of 30-pound bags of groceries. Okay,
All right.
okay,
Thank
so
you.
we'll adjourn this till next month. Okay. Moving right along. 19 Campwood Road. That was a seeking.
No, it was all part of the
a residential apartment.
Can we go to Google Earth on this one too?
That's
I have something
right.
else.
Yeah, well, I didn't worry about it.
Now that you're on a roll,
We're going to Google on this thing?
yeah, but it's actually not in relation to your application.
I helped you out.
Something else that was in the past that never happened, I think.
Okay. We do have a, you're doing it?
You want me to do it?
That's okay.
You want it?
Doesn't matter.
Somebody.
On the bottom?
This is 19 Campwood, it's north of Stone Street. It's a 11,200 square feet lot. This is where Lipton Market is right now. What we are proposing is this is an NC2 zone, the area. We are proposing to add 2 stories to the existing building, apartments.
Was that built with that in mind, do you think, J.B.?
Huh?
Was that structure built with that in mind? Is that sound
Well, we're
enough?
doing, this will be also modular construction, so the structural, we will bring down point loads to the foundation. We're not gonna rely on the existing structure to keep up the 2 floors.
It'll be modular, huh?
Yes.
That's interesting.
So, going through the lot, I mean, if you're familiar, as you can see from that view, that lot is fully developed. There's only a strip of landscaping at the rear, existing landscaping at the rear. We have 2 options that we can go with. This is, we have the landscaping here, go to the next. This is used in the parking area, the way it's being utilized right now. Also want to point out that line that you see on the, that's the easement shared by the 2 properties, the 2 buildings, adjacent buildings. So that's an access easement or driveway easement that they both utilize in and out. So by maintaining the parking spaces to where they are kind of delineated right now and officially, we are able to fit 20 parking spaces here. If we wanted to give more room to the access area, that what we show on the following page, where we have parallel parking along the building.
So how many do you need to preserve the commercial space and add whatever you're adding in residential?
Well, the total requirement for the parking for both would be 25.
And how many do you have?
20.
You have 20, so you have very...
Right, so we need I need 13 for the apartment, and then the commercial is not being used at night, so we're trying to utilize that as well. We're trying to utilize the,
Well, no. If you have 20, what could you build if you only had 20 spaces? Because you gotta go to the Board of Zoning Appeals to get a variance for the hardship you are apparently creating for yourself. Right?
Well,
Well, yes or no?
yes, if you,
Okay.
I need a hardship, but also,
why would
there will
you
be
do
a
that?
hardship. Is to make the project financially feasible, and also, no,
And
but
the
you
impact
have,
of the community. I'm just saying, it's a long travel you're gonna have. You haven't demonstrated that you can't do it without variance, right, without parking.
well, also, I was basing the design on the fact that we have two uses that the parking is not compatible, and the,
Oh, that's not true there.
he's, the market.
Absolutely, I can't imagine a different place, but go ahead.
Let them,
I mean, that's a Board of Zoning Appeals decision. That's not mine, but I don't think you convince me.
Well, if you go back, yeah, I don't know how we drill into that here, but let's just, you're proposing two alternative site plan parking layouts.
yes,
And one produces more parking spaces than the other.
yes.
But one of the notions is, does one of them make better planning sense than the other?
Yes.
But they don't necessarily align in that way. The one that produces the most spaces isn't necessarily the better planning solution. Is that?
Right.
They each have their,
Well,
some issues.
no. It's neither one are good planning issues because they drive variance. So you gotta start there. So
But-
now it's which one is least impactful.
Right.
So,
I don't know if I agree with
yeah,
that.
Joe, can I,
But
so
I
then
understand
you're
what you're
saying
saying.
that, in this case, the fact that is your understanding, or you believe that the fact that there are two different uses, it doesn't apply here? That there are two different time uses?
But it's even more than that, because we're sharing the lot. And on any given day, people who go to the dry cleaner are parking in the spaces that belong to Lipton and vice versa.
But
Because
that's,
it's not enough parking, period. So when you, and then you gotta wind up in the street. Okay, all I'm saying is that if I were to think about the whole area, right, I don't think this is a good planning solution because somebody wants to get X number of apartments. Well, maybe it's less dwelling units that drives less parking. What I'm saying is that you're going, in my mind, you're going the other way. So let me maximize the amount I can get out of my real estate, and then I'll figure out how to deal with the parking later. Parking up there is a critical element. And it really, I mean, I've been going there for 50 years.
in your, I mean,
And it's never clean.
in the rear?
Well,
So
yeah, I
you're
would agree.
thinking-
It's my.
But my thing is like, because I had experience with the same parking area and been driving there too. So you're saying that the rear is always full,
Well,
because I
mean,
almost see
what I
empty.
think you're doing is you're asking this board to weigh in on which one of these two plans that both require variances are, do you prefer? I'm saying I prefer to see a plan that doesn't drive any variances, because you're gonna be, the zoning board is gonna be looking to this board to say, well, what do you guys think? And
But this is where I differ, sorry. This is where I differ with you, because, so you're not accepting the fact that these two uses, if they, one closes at 6 o'clock, I mean,
without, truth be told, without doing this survey that goes on, because the building next door doesn't, and you say, ignore those people, because it's not part of my site plan, but you share everything. You already share it. If this were sort of separate and you had it there, and nobody was, you know, the restaurant that's about to open again, is gonna be looking for a place to park? I mean, all of these things are gonna come into how that parking lot gets impacted today and for the last 50 years that I'm aware of.
Right. So, but, not to interrupt, but just I think the planning notion is, are there opportunities in this application to address a lot of layers? and I'm just walking through some thoughts here. And in that process, variances may or may not, may not be required, and that'll be between JB and his applicant when he goes back and says, look, I don't know that we're gonna advance anything with the planning board because we're not gonna. So for me, I think that this site's a mess for a whole lot of reasons. And I, like you, it's my neighborhood. I see it on a daily basis. That's why there's something else I want to dovetail into this. But for me, I'm thinking there's some opportunities.
I think there are.
Okay.
I'm not saying the idea, the zone itself, drives what we're talking about.
And
it
along with
doesn't drive a list of variances to make it happen.
Well, or incentives. There's another way to. Maybe that's not a technically.
No, I'm okay. I'm open to that, but I just think,
So,
As you say.
We haven't been told why, right? This is where we always get to with this stuff, is why the plan, the as-of-right plan doesn't work.
That's what he said.
Well, yeah, how do we know? You and I experienced this on State Street a long time ago, right? And there was nothing to it.
Does that parking lead into behind the Jewish school?
No, but that's where I'm headed next.
There's
There's some other issues there too.
there is like a driveway, but that's not our property. You mean this driveway in the back you're talking about?
They don't connect, right?
Not with them.
They don't connect.
They're not connected. There's a retaining wall here, and there's about, I would say maybe 30 inches, 4 inches difference between the
But
two.
you used to be able to go through there and go around the back of Campbell's Sweet Shop building and come out onto Stone Ave.
Where the lawnmower,
Yeah.
where there's
Storage.
in the fenced-in compound. Right.
Okay, sorry to get you derailed on the very first thing. Why don't you tell us about the building? How many units you're gonna have?
Well, I just wanted to understand clearly. So you're saying, or the position of the board is
No, I'm saying.
Okay, you're saying, that's the thing. You're saying that the part of the code that talks about if there are two different uses, they can share the parking, you don't think it's applicable here?
I don't think you can make that statement in this very complex, very tiny space that's already sharing among
But he's not, but I'm not
four
using,
businesses.
they share an entrance, not parking,
Okay,
legally.
it doesn't matter. What matters is what's gonna happen, right?
But to have,
We are living in this nightmare in a completely separate part of town where we don't have enough parking and it rolls into something else and causes a nightmare. So I just want to be careful because this is a rather dense area. But I don't want to dwell on it. I want to hear what else you got going on.
well, we have,
Because if you told me you're building 4 one-bedroom units, that might make a difference.
we have 3, it was 6 and 2, but 6
what?
6 1-bedroom, 2 bedrooms.
So you're putting 8 units there.
Yeah.
On 2 floors?
On 2 floors. And this is, you get to, this is it was the existing, and that's what we're trying to do, the existing elevation we're trying to create. And you see on the side.
Interesting idea.
So that was, we're trying to redo the front, get rid of that metal roof that they had. And, the not half, but 1/3 of the store, doesn't get that much traffic, they have a +3, and they close early. And Lipton, as per described by my client, you know, it feels like after 6 o'clock, there is not much traffic into the store.
How do you get into it? How do you get into the residential unit?
In the back. We have access from the back. If we go back, the A1.
You're not gonna have then, because you're proposing some kind of shared parking between the commercial and residential. They're not gonna be designated residential parking spaces.
Usually, what we've done in the past is have each apartment will have a reserved parking space, and the rest have enough for the commercial.
So if you have 8 of the
Apartments.
Cheers. Okay.
So that, the idea was if you go to the site.
That's like half of the spaces. You're proposing 15 spaces on the
15 or 20.
Or 20.
Yeah. Because if you talk about the way it's being used right now, that's will create 20 parking spaces. But to alleviate some of that, that's what we're trying to do, the 15 parking spaces.
So somebody in the second floor has to walk up 3 flights?
There will be an elevator.
There's an elevator.
There's an elevator.
Oh, there is no elevator.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to be compliant with NC 117.
So the protocol here this evening, your desire and our protocol, what are you looking for tonight? Conceptual observations, notions?
Yes, I guess some direction already from Joe.
If you want to talk about the architecture and what it looks like, I have to be honest with you. If my front entrance is the back entrance of the building, I think you got to do something to dress it up.
Yeah, I don't even think we're there yet.
Yeah, I don't.
Right.
We're not here to talk. I don't think you've gotten far enough to talk about that.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you know.
But I
don't
think.
Just go back one.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, that's plenty.
You
Yeah.
got the ground. Well,
it's
like the
4
second story
Right.
here is just completely blank, bare.
Well, I think it's fair
Right,
to say,
right.
wherever
Yeah.
this goes,
Yeah.
it's not going to be that.
Yeah.
Right, right.
But to me, I don't know how to characterize this in very specific terms, but I do think, I don't know that our zoning and our comprehensive plan has caught up to this idea. Maybe we could sift through it and find supporting language. But I do think, for me, and I live in this neighborhood, and I'm walk by Lipton's almost daily. I do think this is an interesting idea, and I think it's an interesting idea at a lot of levels. And I think it presents some interesting opportunities to clean that area up. And I'm not sure what the answer is on the density. I mean, as you were introducing this idea, I thought it was a good idea. When you got to 8 units, then I was like, ooh, I don't know if that's the right number. And I don't know if economically that's the tipping point for your applicant that makes this work or not. But maybe it's something else. Maybe 6 is the right number, and then 6 lends itself to making the parking work better, and 6 lends itself to making the building massing more friendly. And I don't know. I don't know.
Yes.
Pretty much where I was headed. 30 minutes.
And
I think that's right.
And maybe there are other opportunities. As Joe indicated, the circulation in that area was much different many, many, many years ago. And I don't know if you can go that far as to rethink that whole.
When you say circulating, you're talking about the access to
Yes.
the back. I mean, I don't.
Okay.
That's a private
I don't
property.
think you can get there anymore.
No?
Right, it's a different property.
Well, I don't think you can actually get there anymore. I don't think it has anything to do with the fact that it's a different property. I think that there's something there now.
The one thing that you have that I've been meaning to talk about, and I am glad, wherever this goes, if you go back to your photograph, your initial photographs, that, right there. I can remember, because I walk by this all the time, and I can hear the statement, as soon as the asphalt plant's open, we're going to complete our parking lot and line it off in the manner that was approved as a part of that site plan. And what, was that 3 or 4 years ago? The asphalt plants have opened and closed at least 3 or 4 cycles, and that has never happened.
True. Right.
So part of the parking, I feel like, that's still kind of discombobulated in this neighborhood, and that the neighbors came and spoke about, has never been accommodated in the way that it was approved and promised that it was going to be approved.
By the owners of the school?
Yeah.
Dig into that? Thanks, okay.
And I think that bears minimally on this application, but it does have a bearing to this whole.
So,
that being said.
I will go back.
No, don't go yet. You have an audience.
I'm glad.
I'm gonna
Thank you for a
guess-
while.
I'm gonna guess that everybody here isn't here to listen to what's coming up next. So the board is good, we'll open it up to the floor. Okay, so just give your name and address and tell us. Ask the board the questions and we'll try to get you an answer. But you may have to go there.
My name is Tom Wojciechowski. I live at 81 Stone Avenue. I have a couple of concerns here. The building is a very old building. One of my concerns is the weight that's going to be added onto it. Will the foundation and the existing building accommodate it? That building, I'm living here 50 years almost here, and that building was here long before me. So will that foundation and the existing building accept the weight of these 8 apartments? That's number one. Number two, the parking alongside that building is for the 2 businesses that are there. If they're gonna have 8 more apartments, the average apartment is 2 cars per apartment. Where are the 16 spaces? In the back there will not accommodate 16 spaces. So, you know, are we saying they're gonna be parking on Stone Avenue? You know, like you brought up, that parking lot is still not done. The fence that they were supposed to do is still not done. In fact, that fence is a disgrace.
Yeah.
It's actually lowering our property values. Like I said, though, my main concern is, will that existing building and foundation accept that? And the second thing is parking. I don't see 16 spaces back there. The spaces alongside the building belong to them 2 businesses.
Okay, so the answer, most of our discussion tonight was about the parking. So I think JB's got some homework to do on that.
Well, he's got a lot of homework.
And then I think he did address the structural issues because it was brought up that said that the structures above the commercial space will not rely on the existing building. He's gonna go down through the building to tie in to a separate structure that will hold the second and third floor. That right, JB?
Yes.
Yeah. But that's yet to be designed. Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Patricia Ochagrosi, Thomas White. I live at 81 Stone Avenue. All I can say is that that corner up there is, it's saturated with activity up there. There's probably about 13 businesses, as many, if you count all the businesses and the Jewish meeting, the Javad. It's probably as many as Roosevelt Square, if you count every individual on the sides of the street. What happens up there is when things get crowded, it infiltrates onto Stone Avenue, and we do have to put up with all the excess that when they can't, accommodate on that little tiny corner of the village of Osmond. So I would ask the board to please really look into this, because it is a quality of life issue for us who live just a few doors down from Camplitz. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Richard DeCiccio, 79 Stone Avenue. As I can say, there's a lawnmower shop in the corner. And the problem with that, Monday through Saturday, is when they're open. They open at 8 in the morning and they finish at 5 p.m. What happens is you have a lot of the vehicles that go there, mostly trucks and trailers, that can't fit all up in front of the lawnmower shop. Excuse me. So they all come down Stone Avenue. They park left wheels to curb. They park in front of everyone's driveway. They leave their flashers on. They unload all their lawnmowers. They go up the sidewalk with the lawnmowers, etc., driving on the sidewalk with lawnmowers. And it gets to be, a bit much. You have across the street, where the Jewish place is there, you have a driveway that goes all the way around, and it can go up and onto Campbell Road. If you go in it, you can go all the way around. It looks terrible. It's all dirt, and the road is all broken up. The fence is terrible. And you have several multi-dwelling houses that are near there. That those people park in the street. All the people that are in the multi-dwelling on the corner, right near the very, very corner there, you have all those houses, all those businesses all come down to Stone Avenue, all that parking. You have the pizza place. Every one of those businesses that are there, they all move down to Stone Avenue, all through there, and they leave their cars, their own personal cars, in front of the houses all day while they're working up on the corner. And there's minimal amount of parking on that street. It's a narrow street. You got trucks, trailers going through there. We even have tractor trailers that park on that street to unload. There's no sign saying weight limit. They have loading, unloading in front of the lawnmower shop, which no one parks there because they don't want to break the law. So where are they going to park? They're going to park down in the residential area. Now, you have this man here who wants to build 8 apartments. How are they going to have 16 spots? Because you have the Liptons, okay? You have the Liptons, you have the cleaners, you have all those businesses that park there. People come, they're there for like 5 or 10 minutes. Go into the store, they're in and out. But it's going to probably hurt that business with these cars there. And second of all those people that park are all going to want to go, and they already use the Jewish parking lot back there. I don't know if they get permission or not, but they all park there, all along there. And I think it's just very unfair that to be able to build something else there, these people are not going to be able to fit there. And what's the other option? Not on Camp Road, but Stone Avenue. Yeah, that's my biggest problem.
And I would only follow up to suggest, unless there's the opportunity to have leverage here to improve all of those circumstances, or begin to improve all those circumstances, because you're right. We have
live near there, correct? I see there, but
right. And we have applications after application, year after year after year, and these problems are never addressed. And then we have this significant application that makes specific site plan proposals as a part of their approval, and they're never implemented.
Correct.
So, I'm just suggesting that you, at some point, you gotta have some leverage, or the parking lot at Lipton's is gonna be the way it is today, the way it was 20 years ago, and the way it's gonna be in 20 years probably. Dysfunctional.
One other thing, not to interrupt you, but there is a school bus stop right on the corner of Stone and Campwood, and there's quite a few kids from the whole area that stand there. Now, the way they have it configured at the corner, it sticks out just a little bit more, so that, you know, you can stand there. Now, they're gonna reopen this little restaurant. I don't know what they're gonna put there, but when they reopen that, you're gonna have the restaurant, you're gonna have the kids. When school opens on that corner, and all the school buses stop there.
Right.
So it's just very, very congested and unsafe.
I'll make one final observation, because I'm sure you're aware of this too. Can we go back up, zoom back up? There is one other element here that
Yeah.
that now that we have Google Earth, right, this is a real problem in terms of lending to commercial traffic in this zone that's already challenged. There is a lot of, this driveway, you can see what this driveway is accommodating. So we got a real pocket of activity in the Campwood Stone intersection.
By the way, just a point, is that the workers park on Campwood Road. I've seen that.
Yeah, what?
Park where?
On Campwood Road.
As long as we're talking about workers, parking and, can I make one other observation here? I'm looking at, go for it. Sure, you can make some. Can we go to Croton Avenue?
Can we finish this application?
All right.
Okay. Thank you. Hey, you have more?
No, I'm just listening to
Evidence.
I'm trying to see
Yeah.
what.
And we're going down the street now, so we'll get back to that.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else tonight? If not, we will adjourn this application. JB, I think you've heard quite a bit. I really do think we gotta focus on that parking lot. And whatever else. Okay. All right, so, Sing Sing Property Group, 77 Broadway. The applicant is seeking a
Can we just tell
conditional use.
the people who are here, that this doesn't get they don't get another notification?
They do not.
So, if you're interested, this goes on month to month,
Next meeting will be the,
You won't get another
the
notice.
25th of September.
You won't get another notice in the mail, so the meetings are posted on the village website.
Okay, so in addition to the existing residence. Okay.
Can you put up the photos first?
No, go back, remember I showed you the 75.
Of 75, yeah. Well, you started with that bathroom. My name is Peter Chernoff. We own 75 Broadway, 77 Broadway, 76 Broadway, and 80 Broadway. So we're just finishing up 75. I thought it would be useful to at least give you a sense of who we are and what we're doing there, since you're probably a little bit concerned that we treat these properties well. We're pretty proud of how it's turned out. Probably more proud of the stuff that's not the bathroom. There we go. We've completely redone the interior and exterior. Those of you who know this building, all four of these buildings were sort of train wrecks of properties that were lost to banks. They were rooming houses with padlocks on the door, so on and so forth. We've extensively renovated inside and out. we'd like to do the same with 77 Broadway. And then we're already working at 76 across the street, and shortly we'll be beginning at 80. Just to give you a sense of what we're doing, what it looks like, and what we'll continue to do. Yeah, George, take it away.
There we are. Okay.
Okay, so what we're proposing to do here, this is a current one-family residence. We're proposing to do renovation and addition to it. And the reason we're in front of you today is because we're asking to convert this into a two-family house, which is a conditional use in the T-zone. We are going in front of the zoning board because this is a non-conforming property. All the work that we're proposing is not increasing any of the non-conformities. So she's going to walk you through, and then I have a question about parking. Oh, this is this should be, was only 2?
77.
Yeah, I think it's that one. It should be more. If they're going to
Keep going
yeah.
down.
That's the site plan, that's what we have here. In red, you see the area in the back where we are proposing the addition. Like I said, it's about 180 square feet footprint addition that we're proposing. The design itself is a duplex style. We have 2 floors, so it's a total, the residence will be about 2,500 square feet once we are finished. The site plan that you're seeing here, and this is, I'm going to go into our zoning code again, trying to utilize some of the current zoning issues that we have, which is we are requesting to the zoning board parking variances because there's no parking at the site. However, the one thing we wanted to address with this board is under, and I think, Stuart, if I'm correct, 270-30-10 talks about that if we have properties that the same ownership within 200 feet, we can share the parking. And that's up to the planning board to allow us to do that. And in this case, we have, we have 76, we have 80, we have 77, and 75 Broadway.
So when you add up all the parking, is there enough parking to meet the requirements for all the units?
Yes.
Actually, more than enough.
So the only thing that, I don't know, you would need to do is, since you can, sell up an individual property, there'd have to be some kind of an easement arrangement in the deed that said those parking spaces go along with it.
That's not a problem.
Okay.
That makes sense? Okay, that's easy, right?
Okay, so then.
Does that solve your zoning board problem?
No, because we have a system non-conforming.
No, but for
Yes,
parking.
yes, the parking problem.
So see,
There you go. Thank you.
sounds like it.
So if you go to 3, I think it's 8 and then 9, it talks about we have the, 8 shows that's the existing. The front of the house is basically remaining unchanged. And what you see is the 2 sides. Now, if you go to the next page, you see what we are proposing in addition to the rear. That's the darker portion of the building.
And that's 180 square feet, you said?
Yes.
We're essentially trying to make another sort of townhouse in the back. We've taken down the fence between 75 and 77, so we've got a lot of green space in between. So it'll be very nice. There'll be a nice walkway coming around to that back door. So the front unit will have a complete identity of its own. They'll have the front porch, the walkway up, and the rear unit will have an identity clearly of its own as well.
So if I understand the rear unit, it's going to have two entrances on the ground floor, one in the kitchen and one in the back that also is an exterior staircase, basically
Yes.
enclosed but
It's an
attached exterior staircase.
Yeah,
They call them
I'm assuming that-
Swedish staircases, that's what you have in Sweden all the time. So to go up to the second floor, and where you have the bathrooms, right? Okay, so the kitchen entrance is simply considered a secondary entrance, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep, any questions? Anybody else? Looks a little good on this side. Any questions from the public? Okay, so we need, well, two things. Do we have, this is on the west side of Route 9. For the ethics of the environmental impact.
Is that, not, do we meet the square footage?
Unlisted?
Actually, it's type 2.
Yeah.
Type 2.
Okay, so we still have to do.
I have to get it right to the AC.
Is there a threshold?
I'm not,
Yeah,
well,
there is a threshold in square footage that we not.
well, if it's west of
So
Route
can
9
we-
is really
can we
what we
approve
have.
this conditioned upon the
Yes.
EAC?
Yeah.
Yes.
So there a motion to approve this site plan and conditional use, subject to the approval if required of the EAC.
I'll move that.
And second.
Kaya, second, all in favor?
Aye.
We got it, good, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Rockland's Business Center here tonight? Do we have additional business for the board discussing 25 years?
Yeah, that's it. That's the whole thing. The way it's going.
Good evening.
I was happy that you did that.
My name is Howard Milbert, and I'm the Executive Director of the Ossining Children's Center. And I've been at the center for over 30 years. I want to thank you for allowing us to present tonight. I'm sure all of you know about the Children's Center's service to the community, but there are a few things you may not know about us. First, we were founded in 1895. We are one of the oldest daycare centers in the country. We have a 4-star rating from Quality Stars. That's the New York State agency that evaluates daycare centers. We are the only Quality Star rated center in Ossining. We partner with the Ossining Public Schools to provide 3 sections of full-day universal pre-K at the center. And we also work with the Ossining High School to provide child care for teen parents so that they can stay in school. And we also provide, of course, before and after school care for children. Now, just to give you a little bit of background on why we're here tonight, 4 years ago, our board had a planning retreat and came to the conclusion that our buildings were obsolete and that we had outgrown them. We're turning away dozens of families that needed infant care. And we looked at a lot of different options for expansion, and we found that the most viable one was to build a new facility. Now, many of you know that a generous benefactor purchased 32 State Street and gave it to us for the purpose of building a new center. Now, we believe that our plans to build a new center at 32 State Street will make a significant contribution to the revitalization of downtown Ossining. And specifically, the State Street, Broad Street neighborhood. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Eric Heyer, our architect from KG&D, who will address any concerns you have about our new building. Okay, thank you.
Good evening. Hi. Eric Heyer, KG Architects. Is that working? Sort of. Here tonight also with Steve Grog, who's from McLaren Engineering. He's the principal of McLaren. He's a civil engineer on the project. Travis Snell from my office, who's a project architect, and several other members of the school as well. So if you have any questions for any of us, feel free to ask. We're thrilled to be part of this project. It's a wonderful site right at 32 State Street. It's part of the PW-C zoning district, which is a special district, which is a view corridor protection zone with views directly to the Hudson River. I think the purpose of the presentation tonight is to introduce the project. Obviously the school received some comment from you. Hope that you can make a determination that you will be the lead agent for this project and then set up a public hearing. So that, I think this is generally our interest. Previous to this evening, we've met with several people in the community. We met with the village manager to introduce the project, as well as the town engineer, the consulting planners, building inspector, and fire marshal to receive some initial feedback from them, which was generally all positive. And last night, we also met with about somewhere between 12 and 15 community members. We had a neighbors meeting to introduce them to the project, to get common feedback from them, and I'm sure during public hearing, we welcome them back to have additional comment. What you're seeing here on the screen is a view from State Street to the building itself. Previous to us having this property, it was a funeral home. That building was taken down. That building was on the northern half of the parcel. This building, as proposed, is about 27,000 square foot building, which is proposed to be located on the south side of the parcel as opposed to the north side. We feel it's more appropriate on that side for a couple of reasons. One is it provides a better view towards the Hudson River from State Street as you're walking up and down the street. And it also provides some advantages to us from both a construction and building layout and design point of view. One of the sort of main issues associated with this project is parking. Sounds like it's a common theme tonight. We have and are proposing 20 parking spaces on our campus. In terms of zoning code, it states approximately 60 cars would be required. From our calculations and traffic study, and there's a parking diagram based on our current populations and planned future populations on the three different buildings that we have right now. There's two buildings at Thank you, 90 South Highland, and then there's the after-school program at the Methodist Church. So that diagram that's in your package is addressing sort of from beginning of the day, peak drop-off periods during the day, and at the end of the day, the peak pickup periods. And it's showing that typically over the course of the day, generally speaking, we need somewhere in the 35 to 40 parking spaces. And then at peak times, most likely at the end of the day, we're looking at most likely needing about 50 parking spaces. So the 20 on campus accommodates the drop-off and pickup, as well as somewhere in the range of 8 to 10 faculty spaces. But we also need probably in the range of an additional 30 faculty spaces, which we're currently, since we've submitted this, we're very fortunate to be working with one of the local religious institutions that's right around the corner that is proposing to lease us approximately 27 additional parking spaces to get us very close to that 50 parking spaces. We're also in communications with the village in terms of providing directly in front of our building parking for bus drop-off and pickup, as well as some temporary parking spaces for when parents are coming to drop off or pick up their children. The way that this is an infant to basically 12-year-old facility, the children that are there all day long are from ages 6 months through, or newborn through 6 years old, and then there's an after-school program as well. All those children that are brought there by their parents are physically, the parents park in a parking spot, they get out with their child, they go to the front door, they're led into this building, and they're brought to their classroom, and then the parent comes back out to their car and leaves. So it's not a curbside drop-off, it's a physical drop going into the building, and that process takes somewhere in the range of 5 to 10 minutes per family. So there's some time there that people will be parked, and that's really the primary purpose of the lot that's on campus, to make sure that those children have a safe passage from their car into the building, and vice versa. The building is designed, is planned to be generally in keeping with the residential quality of the neighborhood on that side. They're originally mansion houses that have mostly been converted to business uses over the years, including our property previously, which was the funeral home. So that's a pretty good view of it right there from the northeast corner of the property, looking towards the southwest and towards the building. The front portion of the building would be a two-story structure with sort of a wraparound porch and farmhouse-style building in the front, respectful to the other buildings on the street, as well as with an understanding that this is sort of the second home for these young children, and we want to make sure that they feel comfortable when they enter in and enjoy their facility. The first floor is for the infants, for the youngest children, so infants and toddlers would be on the first floor. In the back of the building, there's a play area space for the infants, and you can see at the tail end, right behind the car on the right there, there's a playground on this level as well for the toddlers. There's a level above, which you can see in this picture on the second floor, which is for the school-aged children. There's 4 classrooms on the upper floor, there's 5 classrooms on the main floor. And then you cannot see in this picture, but if we get back to, it's one of the last pages here, which actually has some physical renderings of this being one of them. But you can also see it in this view right here, that because of the site, it's a long, deep site. The first half of the property, you can. We're zipping through here, so just keep zipping. That's good. Can you zoom in on the bottom left? Yep. So the front half of this property is, we want to say it's generally level. It actually slopes down about 10 feet, which if you go out there today and have a site visit, it's to the edge of where the building is there on the left. Can you slide it so you see the image on the left only?
Oh, left only.
Yes, please. Thank you. The existing parking lot goes to where that small shed is in the middle foreground, and where the tan building is in the back. That's the portion of the site that's been improved over the years, where you see the lower green playing field. That's there's a steep slope which comes to kind of a semi-plateau, which is where that's going, and then the steep slope continues down to the bottom of the hill. So the site is sort of broken into a front section, which is relatively level, and the section that leads down towards the river that's quite steep slopes. We're planning not to disturb that, with the exception of some storm piping that will need to go in. So on this view on the left here, you can see that from the street, you can't see this lower level, but there's 5 classrooms that are on a level below, which all 5 classrooms lead out to a playground area. that's for the 3 to 5-year-olds, or mostly 3 to 4-year-olds, but 5-year-olds may be down there as well. And that also steps down and leads to an outdoor field, which is a modified field. It's not, if you go to high school, it's not a high school size football, soccer field. This is about 50 feet by 100 feet, but if you have children or have had children in soccer programs, one of the ideal sizes is an undersized field, somewhere in the 50 by 100 to 60 by 120, because kids tend to get much more touches and learn a lot more about the sport that way. So,
What's the red siding there?
the building is a Hardy board siding, which is it's a concrete composite panel, which looks like wood siding when it's supposed to look like wood. In the case where it's red on those 3 side pieces, it's a paneling. That's again, it's through color, pre-colored cementitious material, which to apply to the side of the building, you actually pre-drill it, and then otherwise you attach it just like any other siding. But it's a 30-plus year product, which doesn't require repainting.
It looks almost like 3 additions, like 3 phone booths almost.
Those three sides. You want to go to the view above? You might have it better.
I'm just looking at those 3.
So those three sides right there.
Yeah.
So it is a school. It's for children. We have an interest to have it have some color and some whimsy to it. So that's part of the intent is to provide some color so that it has some attraction in that respect.
Okay. So
let's listen to the remainder of the presentation.
Yes.
I mean, we're not here, are we here to,
We're here to introduce this project this evening, and to get some feedback from you, whether it's tonight or via letter or however. We'd like to get comment. There's, our intent really this evening is to ask for you to declare yourself lead agent or start that process, the secret process, and set up a public hearing.
Actually, I've actually studied it quite a lot because it's very nice. I really do like the whole notion of the layers and the tucked-in classrooms and the building in the back that becomes sort of the big common eating area. I do have a little bit of a question because I know how these perspectives work. They don't quite always do what we want them to do. But I'm just curious about the massing between the so-called old house and the new. I would like to see, personally, I think that the old original house, so to speak, could be a little larger. It could have a 3rd floor so that it's not, I feel it's being dwarfed a little bit even by the building in the back, which has a, the roof line is larger, is taller, but, the pitch is very, very shallow. It's just because it's so wide that it goes above. So there's something there that I would like to see tweaked in terms of how they play together. But I think overall, I really like the layers. I think it's really well thought out, and functionality-wise, for what it needs to do, I think it could be very successful. I have a question about the parking, especially from what you have enclosed. And I think this is again something we will have to discuss again about what do we do, what do we achieve with the parking as you're suggesting it. I think it's great to try to work with the Trinidad Dios to use the space when they're not using it. And it's wonderful to have that, so we don't have empty spaces during some parts of the day, or they're 24 hours. What I do have a problem with, though, a little bit of a problem with is lot 25, which is owned by the roller company. You know, I'd like for them to be able to do something with that lot and not suddenly have some conditions that you have been given stand in the way for them to develop this and maybe even have housing. So those are some of the things that I think we probably have to take some discussions up here.
So, thank you. Our initial recent conversations is that we are pursuing the Trinidad Church site for parking, and we're not pursuing the other property.
Okay. And I probably have the answer, but I still will ask it anyway. Could there have been some underground parking or some parking from Hunter Street?
We looked at both of those, yes. We actually had a parking deck that was underneath the playing fields. Because of the size of the site and the steepness of it, it really was too steep for us to gain access to that lower level to be able to provide. There's 4 different play areas that are required for the 4 different age groups. And to provide that parking underneath, we actually had to get down about 22 feet, and that was making for about a 16 to 17% grade to get down to the parking deck. And so it just wasn't realistic, especially in the winter time when you have snow and ice and issues like that, that was a real concern. It's also parking garages and educational facilities you try to stay away from. Parking garages are, not that they are necessarily sketchy, but they're not as comforting as grade level, surface level parking. So for those 2 reasons, we were trying to stay away from it. And then parking down at the bottom of the street had also been discussed, but we felt that we probably needed a ski tow to get the faculty members up, otherwise they'd go to some other facility to work.
How much fun would that be?
I would like to have a gondola.
Come on, let's revisit that.
If this was Hong Kong, we'd have a vernacular, right?
How many spaces, I know you mentioned, off-site are you pursuing with the church?
We believe we can fit 27 on that campus.
And so the mechanism, because we've kind of been in this circumstance before, probably is a good idea to share with this applicant the kind of mechanisms and the mechanics of how we expect to see that happen.
As we just did.
What if that doesn't happen, Eric? What if that specific relationship doesn't come to fruition?
We have to find another lot to do
Okay.
that. This project cannot go forward with, we know that we need 50 parking spaces for us to be successful. That's a given. And so if we can find 50 or 60, we know we can fit 20 on here comfortably. If we can find 30 to 40 others that are adjacent to here, that's what makes this project work.
Right.
And so our board has spent an awful lot of time this summer talking to different groups and continue to talk to the village to figure that out, as well as start the communication about busing, because there's busing at the beginning of the day as well as in the middle of the day for the grade level kids.
Right.
And so that busing, there would be directly in front of our property a section that would be striped, so that during those times that would be dedicated for bus drop-off and pickup.
And the scale appears to me to be the big bus scenario. The scale is
Unfortunately,
striking.
it is all big bus. If we had small buses, we could bring them on the property, but they're all full-size buses generally.
Right. So I think where I was headed with the what if, because I would be surprised if you didn't come to some relationship, but the what if would be, this community has identified a lot of parking scenarios over the past 2 or 3 years, or opportunities. And maybe this is an opportunity to pursue some of the long-term goals and site opportunities we've identified as a community in conjunction with your application. Just saying that. Or,
I love the idea. I love the idea, and I think you should make some phone calls. But it's also ambitious.
it is, but.
We will say that a church is a great sort of partner, because typically during the week and when we need the parking, it's available, it's
I
empty.
agree.
And so it's a great first synergy.
Yeah.
But we've also been talking with the village about other opportunities around it, and there's other lots, there's other surface areas and parking. We know that from the neighborhood, that there's some concern about us parking directly in front of our building or in front of other lots, because of everybody wants to be able to park in front of their building. So we understand that we need to find dedicated space that we can lease for a long period of time, whether it's directly with the village or with a private organization.
I mean, would you be able to get I'm assuming the area in front would be designated to buses, so there would maybe even with the Department of Public Works can be set off, that there's no parking there, right?
But the buses in that configuration create another issue. And it does it on South Island Avenue now, is the bus stops on the street and cars stop in both directions. And this is
Emerald is the same thing.
But we should not be creating solutions that continue to have that.
Yes,
problem.
I agree.
It's gotta be a different solution than, because this is not just one, this is a lot of buses.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's for a long period of time in the morning and the afternoon. So we need a better solution for that. But I expect we're gonna get a lot of help at the public hearing. So I don't really wanna get into gory details.
No, I agree. I agree.
I think we've got a gist of where we're going. Tonight, are we comfortable enough that we can,
Well, I think we need to first send out the notice to the lead agency.
Yeah.
So we gotta be okay from the board to do that. We can get that notice out, and then after that, we can schedule the,
so that's, yes, I think that this board has the most weight on this, but the variances are gonna be critical.
yes.
So we have to think through how we want to do that.
We believe it's one variance, it's the parking variance. Right. Understood.
So, okay, so yeah, so we should declare we would like to declare our intent to be the lead agency.
Yeah.
Well, to send out a notice to declare,
Set up an
indicate your
agency.
interest to be lead
Yeah.
agency, and then we'll go through
All
it.
right?
Yeah.
So we'll do that. All right?
Thank you.
May I make one final comment, Eric?
John,
Did
please.
you think you were gonna get away?
No.
I thought,
No,
I was expecting a phone call tomorrow.
Well, I won't trouble you. But I do, so I would dovetail Walter's observations and Kaya's observations into, I think it's, all of the elements are there, especially the front to back layering, it's all there. And I couldn't even articulate it at first, but Walter headed there, Kaya headed there. It's about the proportion of the volumes one to another. I think you've solved everything else. I think you've identified conceptually all the right elements. I think the introduction of the red architectural punctuation points are probably a very positive thing. Now it's just refining the proportions based on observations. And I really dig the back. The riverside is just off the chain, if I can use a real. It's dope.
That's a positive.
Is that a southern thing? Is that a southern thing?
I don't think so.
Off the chain.
I don't think I've been away from there too long, so.
all right.
Thank you.
See you next month. All right, moving along, we have to approve the minutes of the last meeting. Anybody have any additions, corrections, deletions? If not, there are motion to approve.
I'll move it.
Walter, second. John?
I'll second.
All in favor? Super. Okay, so that concludes our official business. We have one informal. Which is 25 Cedar Lane. This is subdivided, taking the front and the back, right? You wanna-
Right.
Did we see this last one?
The
No,
residential side.
This is, yeah, so that's,
It's butting up to this beautiful stucco on
Right.
cedar. Yeah, that beautiful building, yeah.
So you actually now gonna build a building, or is this still the subdivision question?
no, there's still, we're gonna propose a building there, and I think, we're almost there with the subdivision. I think it might only need to be signed.
Yes.
I think that's
Yeah,
correct.
so that, we're waiting for that to happen, or to have a formal application, but we're waiting to start the dialogue. And I'm hesitant to say, Joe, but we're proposing 8 apartments.
How many?
8.
How big is the property?
It's 12,000 square feet.
12,000 square feet, that's just over a quarter acre. You wanna put 8 units there?
It's a mixed-use building. I think that's, yeah. So we have,
One is affordable.
20%, right?
Welcome to my world, David. Welcome to my world.
No, right now, you're under the wire.
Right now.
Yeah. That's,
Maybe. Conceptually, this looks remarkably similar to another project.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta do something with your vegetation and your bollards, it's all the same.
we will work on that concept. To quote the famous attorney, Rice Stewart, don't worry, baby. So the idea is, yes, we are locating, the idea is,
Not really, we see the architecturals first, so what the facility's gonna look like.
you know what, I don't think, when we send this,
There's
I
something
may
else to
have,
buy.
I don't think we have architectures yet. We wanted to start because,
You wanna do the site plan first?
well, we have floor plans. I can show you the floor plans if you want. I don't know if you want to use them. Yeah.
Cut to the chase.
You just see the grading.
Yeah, the grading is quite impressive.
Quite impressive. Don't know how to take that.
Is it taller or shorter than the Croton Avenue proposal,
Oh, yeah.
than the Baker property?
Oh,
That's
now
why
I get you
the
where
site
you're
plan
going.
is remarkably
It's,
located.
yeah, it is similar to the,
Uh-huh.
now that it, yes, we are doing the same thing. We are expanding into the hill.
Is this on the west side of Cedar Lane?
East,
No,
Oh, west
no, this
side,
is
yeah,
of
it's-
Highland. That's the,
it's,
this is important.
it's
This will
backing
be
up
Highland
to
Avenue.
Cedar.
The address is Cedar Lane,
Yeah,
but
it's a
there's,
subdivision.
Yeah.
Morgado, the one, the folder on the top. Right, Morgado.
Oh.
The one on the bottom. Should have the floor plan.
Yeah.
and it was really cheap.
Yeah. So this project will be next to, if you look at, this project is next to the kind of, almost adjacent to the Indusi property, and we'll have kind of the same site planning. You know, we're gonna have double retaining walls, we have landscaping. So the idea, again, we have, this is a modular building. Downstairs, we're gonna have a small bakery.
Go try bakery again?
Well, I didn't realize I would go on ahead. It's not owned by the bakers, it's the Morgado Bakery. And I can bring some information as to, it was more, she does mostly cakes, so there won't be, not as much. Huh?
You already have a tenant?
Yeah.
Don't have a building, you have a tenant.
Yeah. That's actually the owner's wife, so.
Oh, so that's a given.
Yeah. The units, we work out the units to be all the modular units. Again, it's kind of the same, but I think the process here is going to be working out with the site and being able, we meet all the criteria, we meet all the zoning criteria, it's just going to be the environmentals in the site.
So when we see this at the formal process, could you just, since we have colors that you can make, can you color in each unit? So we
Yes.
see which
Yes.
units are what?
Yep.
The units are approximately what size, JB?
Approximately 800 to 900 square feet each unit. So in the units, they're going to be, the building is adjacent to the property line, so these two apartments on this side are quite, we had to be creative to try to fit the windows and everything there in order to.
Quite the fancy furniture.
Now, on the site plan, you were saying that you're gonna retain some of those trees that are there. I doubt that you can.
No, we never, well, we
You've
replaced
changed
it.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, you're replacing because you can't retain
Yeah.
it, yeah, okay.
You've actually thought about these as accessible units too? See, you got wheelchairs in there.
Yes.
And is it
Well, we have,
elevator?
we have an elevator in, we've been going through some of this multifamily that they all had to be type B units, which means we had to get them ready to be handicap accessible, or to be converted to handicap
Wow.
accessible. Yeah, so that's quite the, yeah.
Well, we look forward to seeing what this thing's gonna look like.
Yeah. Well, universal design doesn't mean handicap necessary.
I didn't
It
say
can be
that. I
done
said,
very
I
well.
wanna know what this is gonna look like on the outside.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
I feel the challenge.
All right.
It's 10 o'clock, okay.
Anything else you want us to know tonight?
Can you leave that maybe?
No? Good.
No, I think this, the next round we'll have a formal seminar, and we get when we can have a formal seminar.
Good.
I would just pay attention to the sewer, because that was a big holdup for the subdivision. And now
Yes.
that you have that large cut, might get a little bit tricky.
Okay.
This is your turn. Okay, thank you. We can adjourn, motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second. All in favor?
Yeah.
Okay.